A word to the wise. We are an explicit podcast tackling content with adult themes, as well as entering spoiler territory if you are not caught up with us. This week, that would include the first chapter name through Valka again. What's the name of the first chapter? History? Verge of History?
The Verge of History, yeah.
That would include the Verge of History through Valka. Again, part 2. Boogaloo.
Hey there, this is Cross.
This is Josh again.
And we are Words and Whiskey, a podcast for veteran and novice readers alike. We tackle fiction novels and love to talk about what we're drinking. You should think of us as your intoxicating weekly book club.
You kind of like put a like and we tackle into like one word.
I did. I kind of rolled it.
Yeah. A podcast for veteran and novice readers alike we tackle. You know, it's like, what? Sometimes you throw those words at me, Cross, and I don't know what they are. So I thought maybe this was another fuck, what was that one word that you
Oh God, I did from the first book, like within the first fucking week of the episode. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Not quite like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I derailed it by talking about your weird words, but
no, I mean that's fair. I mean this is all filler space.
You know who else loves weird words?
Today is our 9th episode talking about Howling by Christopher Rocchio. This week we're reading The Verge of History through Valka again, as Josh so eloquently mentioned. But how about, before we talk about our cocktails, a quick check-in with how you're feeling?
Yeah. In the Devil's Cut, I gave you a little bit of a rundown that I've been mad busy this past week, but like fun busy, like social busy. So it was a little hard to like lock in and get the reading done. So I think that, you know, as I've mentioned, like outside factors always kind of affect like how I digest a section, but still very much so enjoyed this section. I think that there were parts where I was like, there was like a whole lot of description about things that were really hard for me to visualize, with like the Cielcin ship. And I'm like, all right, so there's the Demiurge, but then there's the ship that they're on, but then there's the other ships in the hold of that ship, but then there's a giant asteroid ship, and they're connecting somehow, and they're talking somewhere for sure. The details are very lost. I mean, there's a ramp, but it's not a ramp, it's an elevator, but it's an elevator that people can keep coming out of just kind of continuously, and I don't know. There might be semicircles, there are legions.
For sure. Yeah.
So there was just like, I think that the section is very tense. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens in it. We start to really get an idea of like how this conflict is shaping up. We start to see like where these insurmountable like differences start to kind of present themselves that Hadrian's mentioned in the past, like looking back on his idealism and knowing it from the future, being like, yeah, sometimes that's just not even an option. The Cielcin aren't evil, but they don't exist within the morality of what we can consider not evil.
Right.
We start
nature is very different.
That a little bit. We get some like kind of brutal, almost body horror-esque shit with a certain character that is introduced here as like a little slave person. And yeah, Prince Arenata is he's there. He's a lot. He's not giant and silver like the Vision, but you know, other than that,
yeah, not quite the same.
Yeah. So that is my general vibes. Also, maybe some people kith.
The kith at the end. Finally,
yeah, Hadrian and Prince Arenata. Finally,
yeah, finally. We've been waiting.
We've been waiting.
The meet cute that we've always wanted. Tanneran was watching from the chair.
Tanneran's always watching.
Valka
help them with the blackout, though. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like, go buy you some time.
This is a really interesting section because this is one that we dissected and cut in half, basically, from last week. In part because I was like, I think that maybe I overcooked on what we can cover in a reasonable way, so we kind of like cut this. I might have structured this whole like end of the book a little bit differently with that in mind, but I do kind of like this section being like hey, we're meeting the Cielcin actually for the first time here, and then with a little bit of like the background cook of like a lot more on Rain Smythe and getting to understand like the Empire's perspective on things as well. So, and then the little Valka, tease at the end.
Yeah.
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 With that, I think we can talk about your cocktail, Josh. I would love to hear.
It's cocktails, right? Yeah. Yeah. Shit. I went so simple today. I went so simple and bright and refreshing. It's like it's basically an Aperol spritz, but without the prosecco, which is the part I don't really like about an Aperol spritz anyways.
Absolutely.
It's just gin and 1 part gin, 1 part Aperol, and then over ice topped with like a lemon and I've used it in the past. It's from Trader Joe's. It's like a lemon soda water, but it also has lemon ginger soda water. It's very nice.
Yum.
Yeah, so it's like a little lemon ginger gin Aperol refreshing thing that I would have put a lemon twist in, but I opened the fridge and realized I used my last lemon yesterday. So
very fair.
Imagine there's a lemon twist here.
It's perfect, delightful. I imagine that would also, like, without the lemon soda specifically from Trader Joe's, I just immediately was like, oh, throw ginger beer in that, and that's like almost like a different spin, but a perfect replacement.
Yeah, I currently have ginger beer, and I considered using that instead, but I was like,
but the lemon soda is bright, like it's got.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And there's ginger involved anyway, so it worked out. Elderflower. It's elderflower. There's no ginger.
Okay. That's why I was like,
there's not ginger.
Ginger lemon is an interesting combo. I feel like the ginger would really get washed out.
Ginger lemon.
The lemon would get washed out. Yeah.
Which is where I was getting confused. I have ginger lemon tea. That I have sometimes. Ginger and not ginger and elderflower. Lemon and elderflower.
Yeah.
There's lemon. There's elderflower. There's Aperol, and there's gin, and it tastes nice.
What's in your beer? Where's it from?
Wheat. Barley, some sort of sugar content to help, ferment, and water. There's usually water involved as well. Time, heat. Actually no heat because it's a lager, so these are typically
cold fermented.
We've got NATO.
I really like that
Coronado Brewing Company, another great local San Diego brewing company. We got a premium lager. It's the Stay Coastal Premium Lager, 4.5%. Super bright, nice, lovely, beachy, great can, great art, great brewery. Yeah. What else can you say? Other than NATO.
NATO, dude. NATO. I love the can art. I'm a big fan.
Fantastic can art. Coronado always has really good art, really bright, nice beers. They tend to they have IPAs. They have like sours and stouts and stuff, which I typically go towards like heavier beers in general. Oh, they make a lot of great like bright lagers, ambers, things like that. So
nice.
Beachier beers, if you will. What about you? What are you cocktailing?
I made a drink that I'm calling the Calcenturite. Yes. I think it's a pineapple-y forward drink, but basically what it is 3 ounces of tequila, a quarter ounce of allspice dram, a quarter ounce of green chartreuse, and then 3 ounces of pineapple juice, an ounce of lemon juice, shaken, and then topped with ginger beer. So very kind of like nice, sparkling, very refreshing. I was kind of going with a similar vibe. I bought some new glassware at a couple of different vintage shops that I've been really amped to like take new cocktail photos with and drink out of. So I wanted to use one of those too. So I wanted a tall bev. And this is just delightful. It's very easy drinking.
Hell yeah. I love that. So, I forgot to mention what my cocktail is just called Aperol again.
Perfect.
Yeah,
we both stole chapter titles.
Exactly. It's the best. So
yeah, but yeah, it's solid cocktail. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
It's just like a refreshing pineapple cocktail in a lot of ways. So
I feel like whenever we do these episodes, like for listeners, I guess for viewers also it's hard to tell, but like if you're a viewer, you might see that it's sunny and bright in our videos, where typically it is dark and moody. For our listeners, I mean, we're recording this at like noon on a Sunday, so I feel like if you're doing a cocktail at noon on a Sunday, like you want to go bright, simple, floral or fruity.
Some nights it's evening though, and we're like walking in with like, here's my Manhattan, my Negroni,
brown liquors for after dark,
Yeah.
So
very true.
Yeah, it's just it feels right on a Sunday morning to do like a brunch cocktail.
Yeah, exactly. Following that up, the beer that I have is a lovely, very interesting. I love Grimm Brewing. They're always excellent. They're out of New York. But this is a barrel-aged dark sour ale with local blackberries and plums. Description here, is these fruits underwent a carbonic maceration and auto-fermentation before blending in secondary fermentation with a dark sour ale that was aged in third-use bourbon barrels.
There's a lot of different steps to that one.
Yeah, it is dark in color, which is fascinating for a lot of sours. It is delightful in flavor. It is so good. But
man, I could just tell that I would take one sip and be like, this is fantastic, chug it, and then spend the next 3 days on the toilet. The sours mess me up for some reason.
Thankfully, because of the fermentation here, this is not the type of sour that would mess me up generally.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm actually pretty amped for this one because I don't think it's... I think I'm going to be in the clear, but I'll report back. Yeah,
fruited sours or like wild ale sours.
Smoothies,
those ones get me the worst. Those, they come for
smoothie
me.
sours, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Those are definitely the ones that like come in one way and you're like, ooh, tasty, and then they come out the other way and you're like, I'll see you in a month or two.
No yeah, right. Exactly.
I'll try again later.
Yeah,
but yeah,
they're like the opposite of Sour Patch Kids. It's like, well, I guess first they're sour, but then they're really sour.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, with those out of the way, I think we can hop in here and start talking about our little book ski. Go ahead. Oh, did you have something?
I just agree. I think we should do that. I think
we should.
Exactly correct.
Interesting. I love being right in this scenario.
You're so smart and wise.
Wow. Thanks, Josh. We'll start with the Verge of history. We start this chapter with an assessment of Hadrian's actions from Smythe and Bassander Lynn, with Rain dismissing his choices. And more importantly, even, Lynn feels slighted by the fact that Rain didn't give him a chance to do exactly what Hadrian ended up doing, which she points out he likely wouldn't have done anyway.
And I love
such a good read. Yeah.
There's a line in there too where it's like, being the honest man he was, he didn't disagree, you know? So like it's also kind of like a pullback to that like Devil and the Honest Man. Like I feel like we start really getting it lined up that yes, Hadrian is the devil, Bassander is the honest man.
Especially
of what
here,
Hadrian tries to convince you of. Yeah, exactly. This whole chapter is just like two kids that have been fighting getting pulled into the principal's office.
Absolutely. I wouldn't even say kids. This is like being in front of mom, right? And like your brothers, right? Like this is absolutely like your mom putting you in your place. Like, buddy, I know you wouldn't have fucking done that for sure. Also, it's like, you're a liar.
Broke the rules, and it's like, stop snitching on your brother, bitch. You know?
I needed him to break the rules. No one else was going to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I asked him to. What? He cut off my hand. Why were you fighting?
You shouldn't have thrown the rocks at him.
You said not to go in the pool area, and he went in the pool area, and I couldn't go there, so I was throwing rocks at him because I couldn't get to him.
And then he dropped some ships on you and killed some of your men. Who should be upset here? I mean, it was bad. Hadrian, you shouldn't have killed those guys, but...
they shouldn't have gotten in his way, you know?
Yeah, right.
I just love
manslaughter charges.
Right. I do like legitimately love the like two brothers who are in trouble vibe of this chapter though.
Yeah. And who like still even at the end like fail to agree and like shake hands and lock eyes. It does feel very, to me it feels very brotherly in a way where it's like,
it does, yeah.
Nah,
and the worst parts of brotherhood.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But then, Rain Smythe kind of turns her focus directly to Marlowe and makes his role clear. He's here to support more than anything else, including the Calcenturite, of whom we'll talk a little bit more about lately, and sort of the idea of the Calcenturite within that chapter, of whom is named Torvaro, and a reflection on the casual lies that he told, meaning Hadrian, to Uvenari on a mesh, interrogating on his own, as though the Empire now knows about the way that he was, not translating one-to-one.
Yeah.
Rain also notes that she wants to speak to Tanaran as well, but settles that she'll have Vero accompany her instead, or Varo. Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to have that, like, all right, we've watched back the tape, and there's kind of that mention that, like, at least Valka got rid of the worst parts, like, the most incriminating moments were not recorded, but, like, it does kind of make you wonder, especially with, like, Rain having this kind of like willing to bend the rules to get the job done indirectly thing. It's like, okay, so like Rain knows, but like how high up do they know? Like how much of this is just like Rain saw the tapes and she's like, all right, we'll share some of this, or how much of it is like it's just like fully known another crime
public
on
knowledge.
The docket. Yeah. It's interesting. Hadrian's stacking up quite a list of hangable offenses at this point. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's sort of cornered in the way
really
that
can't go back to the Empire at the end of this book.
He super shouldn't at the very least.
It's not a good idea.
Yeah.
Really should consider being a spice merchant.
If Valka's down, we'll get into that later. But there's also a fun note here that Rain is left-handed, and that left-handedness is fully bred out of Palatine culture. This is not something that we've gotten before, but like an interesting note.
That for some reason, that note, like every now and then there'll be a random kind of almost throwaway moment that I'll think about too much and miss like the next couple of lines. This was one of them, and I was like, wouldn't it almost make more sense for the Palatines to have bred out right-handedness, because that's more common amongst the plebeians? So like they would have like standardized the more rare trait that by all accounts is often considered like an advantage in like dueling sports. Like if you're ever up against like a fencer, typically left-handed fencers are harder to beat because you train against them less. Every left-handed fencer trains against right-handed fencers. Very few right-handed fencers end up training against left-handed fencers, so it gives like a natural edge. Or like left-handed batters in baseball as well. There's often like this thing where like being left-handed can be slight advantage, because
left-handed quarterbacks, for instance, and like a whole skew of different plays that they run technically
that a right-handed quarterback can't necessarily pull off in the same way. So like for some reason I got really locked into that line and was like, I feel like the Palatines would have all been left-handed.
Fair.
But maybe all the Palatines are right-handed because only nobility is left-handed or some shit. I don't know. Probably not. But or they're just all right-handed and I'm reading too much into it. And they just didn't want there to be that variation that makes them like not as unified and coded and perfect, because any sort of variation is a consideration for the possibility that one thing could be considered less than the other or more than the other. And if it wasn't distinctly like given by the Empire and the Emperor himself, then it's a variable they can't have, which totally makes sense. But I got too locked into like the sports of left-handedness.
I feel like you're onto something with that last theory, right? Like I think that's more what it is in my mind.
Yeah.
As far as like what I think is, it seems to be more of like a uniform thing, so that they like present a unified front in a lot of ways, and that does inadvertently also make them superior. There's some interesting conversations about hierarchies and humanity a little bit later here. That is fun in one of the chapters. I think it's maybe Pavilion, or maybe the one right after Pavilion, in which they kind of talk about nature and sort of the way that we fall into hierarchies. But this is such an interesting example of it rearing its head in a subtle way in Hadrian's perspective that, I mean, if we were like conventionally, this would be such a weird thing to call out as like a personality flaw, but like, I'm trying to figure out exactly which direction I'm going here. Hang on. This is such a weird thing to call out as like a personality flaw that I also can't help but think of it as sort of like a subtle classist remark that he's making here. But it doesn't come off classist because it doesn't feel classist to us. But I think we should read classism into it.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. I also then got stuck on the fact that if the Palatines could like make themselves, like 7 feet tall and live
all right-handed
for hundreds of years, why didn't they just code in ambidexterity?
That's honestly more shocking to me, is why aren't they ambidextrous, right?
Exactly. Like, why would they give themselves a limited hand whenever that's like an active choice to limit one of their hands rather than like to make sure that they all had the same dominant hand? Why did they decide to have like a non-dominant hand in the first place?
Yeah, it's super, super weird, super out there as far as like, again, we're so hyper focused on this like tiny little detail.
And this is what happened to me. And then it was like, and then he read, like, I was just over here thinking about the hands, and then he's like castles
and then the chapter's
of ice.
over.
And I was like, oh wait, what?
Wait, where was I? What was happening there?
I was thinking about hand stuff.
You fully rewind the chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
Torvaro is an interesting character. We really get into him a little bit later again in the Calcentrite, which is kind of a fun chapter, but. We then move into some kind of like fun meta strategy here with Karn, or against Karn, rather, in case everything goes really wrong during these negotiations, leaving the Mistral where it is with its troops intact in Fugue, so they can have kind of like maybe a bedrock in the middle of the ship as opposed to just where they are supposed to be, that the Empire is supposed to be in the ship. this becomes especially important in the next chapter, or in a couple of chapters from now, when we find out that there's double the host coming from the Cielcin versus the sort of human host that is allowed, because Karn is considered human by all accounts, which is interesting. But Hadrian also believes that need is rising, as he really isn't sure who gave Switch the coordinates to send in the first place, as he's not sure that like they can count on, or how much they could count on Karn at all in this situation, if at all.
I would say probably like a solid 0%.
Solid 0.
A solid 0. I don't know if you can go less than that, but
low single digits,
0, for sure,
like lowest single digit.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, so they're like, all right, we'll leave them on Fugue on our ship just in case things go south. And I'm like, that makes sense, and it feels like it's setting something up. When things go south, we have like our backup here ready to go off the board, ready to bring in whatever capacity. It's definitely setting something up that we don't necessarily get to like too much of a resolution to here, but at the same time, like it does feel like a strange comment to like make to the reader. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, all right, like they told us we had to leave our people on ice, but that's good. They're right where we want them. But like until we get some sort of payoff to that, it just feels like such a strange aside. But I expect there to be something.
Yeah, and it doesn't pop up again. Like we don't really talk about this again until the very last chapter, in which case it's mentioned just that like they're remaining on ice still while negotiations are still going okay. So
yeah, exactly.
That's kind of like our two check-in points.
It's definitely like information that wouldn't be given to us if not to be used.
If it's relevant.
What's the gun, right?
Chekhov's gun. Yeah.
Chekhov's gun. Yeah, it's very kind of like, all right, you're not going to tell me that there's people on ice just in case things go south, unless things are going to go south and we need those people on ice, and then you want to make sure the reader knew that was there.
Right?
Yeah,
maybe.
So,
Maybe.
Or maybe they're going to be like, things are going south. Should we get them off ice? And then Hadrian's going to be like, no, I have a gun we haven't mentioned yet.
I secretly have another gun.
Exactly.
It's a second sword. I use 2 at once.
What should we do? Actually, I've been training with... Sorry.
Yeah, what is this, Golden Sun?
Yeah. Anyway. I was like, how far do I want to go with this joke?
To be fair, and I don't want to get into this too hard. I think that we'll talk about this more in the wrap-up. I do often compare this book to Golden Sun just because of like the feel, the evolution of the story in a lot of ways. And this is also such a great example of actually it stepping back into the shoes of the previous book, because this is reminiscent of like the last third-ish of the previous book, where there's a lot of negotiations, they're sitting at tables, there's like the sort of like meta-political commentary that also is like endemic to Game of Thrones in space.
Yeah. Torture, barbarism, all of it.
So, yeah, all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
We love that. Yeah. We're fans. So Hadrian also takes a moment to himself to explain even further to Smythe the Americanii stealing men's bodies, contradicting himself again from last week, as he proves himself effectively a liar to Bassander Lin in front of his face, and takes little note of it, for the record. I find this really interesting that he doesn't say that he's like, we have to draw that connection, and then also understand that that's part of the reason that Bassander is so mad at the end of this chapter. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, Rain determines that Vorgosos in the end must be destroyed. We do get a note a little bit later. We are not near Vorgosos right now. We are completely gone.
Which, this is one of those sci-fi isms that I'm like, this back half I'm struggling with a little bit. I'm not struggling with the story itself, but like the distance, the where we are, and I think we're supposed to be a little confused. But then just like the scope of what. All right, which ship is inside of which ship? How big is ship compared to ship? Where is ship? How is ship? Which ship is ship? And other ship comes ship, and then the ships they talk with ship. Does small ship come to big ship? Does big ship go to planet ship? I don't know, but they all end up talking.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's a lot of it's like a Russian doll situation, nesting doll situation of ships, and then there's other ships involved, and we don't know where the ships are or where they came from or where they went. It's like Cotton Eye Joe.
And I was just about, you beat me by a half second.
You edit this. You could get the joke in.
No. You nailed it. It is interesting to me. I think that this is kind of an important thing to bring up. I believe Christopher Rocchio said that he suffers from aphantasia publicly. So like he has problems personally visualizing the way that things are and actually look like within a mind's eye. And so he just kind of, which is fascinating to me considering the visuals that he creates, in such a way, like definitely. I don't understand the disconnect there.
Right. Yeah.
But I do think sometimes it rears its head.
Like The Lesser Devil, like that's such a, I think, easily visually like digestible book. But then sometimes you hit stuff like this and you're like, I could see it.
Yeah, right. I think that this is a good example of sort of that problem. And it's worth noting, I think The Lesser Devil was written after the Howling Dark. So like technically speaking, chronologically in his writing journey, I think it was around or right after Howling Dark. But yeah, I find that I think that it's intentional that we're confused. It's very Lovecraftian also, which a lot of this book is pulling upon both Inferno and Lovecraft to kind of give us this sort of like confusion of place and space.
Yeah, definitely. So, it's like we're in this Howling Dark,
Yeah. He hasn't even said the title of the book yet,
Not yet.
Yeah. We got Empire of Silence last time. We've not gotten Howling Dark this time. But yeah. The Empire destroying Vorgosos. I mean, do we think that'll happen ever?
Certainly try.
They can certainly try. It's definitely the read.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to go well for anybody involved. Maybe for Karn. I feel like Karn might be fine. Also, like, I don't know that we actually have, like, a legitimate reason to believe that the Empire could find Vorgosos again. Like, sure, they got coordinates once. We have no way to know that Vorgosos stay in place. Like,
yeah, right.
It is a mythical place that nobody finds unless they want you to find it. So, like, why should we believe that the Empire has any sort of upper hand here from some weird coordinate that nobody even knows how it got out? Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who's older than the Empire is going to be like, oh, no, you found me, and then you're just going to roll up and destroy him. Like, yeah, this is the first time that's ever happened.
Right. He's had 15,000 years. He's as old practically as the Empire itself. Exactly,
So, you're right. This is totally, oh, no, he's cornered. He's done now. Oh, he never thought of this.
Yeah.
So, I don't have any fear for Karn Sangria or for his Maricani nightmare or anything else going on Vorgosos. I do think that Basander Lin will try to get the clearance for that or just go for it. Basander Lin will want to destroy that place, and it will not go well for that company.
Yeah.
That is my prediction there. Yeah. So
cool. Fair. Yeah. I love that kind of like idea. Like, it seems as though this is such a distant possibility. And again, who leaked the coordinates and what coordinates did they leak? Yeah. We don't even know where we met the Empire. Like, we don't know that they saw Vorgosos.
We just know that Hadrian was like in a prison and then he was brought to what seemed like where
4 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. The pyramid itself could be mobile, like.
Well, there's a hint that maybe it is, too, within the pavilion, because there's this thing where we're in the same fucking garden.
Yeah,
that we were in,
exactly. So it's like, I don't think the Empire went to true Vorgosos. I don't think that's where Hadrian was anymore. I don't think that's where the ship was anymore. I also don't think it stays in one spot. I don't think Karn is worried for a second about any of this. We still don't even know how many Psalms he has.
Right.
Like, it could rival any legion that the Empire sends. He's had 15,000 years to collect weird corpses, and I don't think they expire the same way humans do, like...
Very true, yeah.
So, yeah. I think if Karn wanted to, he could go destroy the Empire. I don't think the Empire can go destroy Karn.
Yeah, right. At the very least, he could go to war with the Empire. I don't know if the Empire would ever find their way to Karn, though.
Yeah, exactly. So, I just don't think that would be beneficial or fun for Karn at all, so, like, why would he do it?
No. But maybe fun, but not beneficial for sure.
Yeah, maybe fun for a little, but then he's gonna have to deal with it once it stops being fun. It's like then he just lost like half of his clients. So
true. So Rain shouts at the two men, Hadrian and Basander, to put aside their differences, like we mentioned earlier, but they're kind of bickering like brothers. Hadrian, though, extends a hand as, I'm going to say, the younger brother, I think, in this situation.
In this situation, for sure.
And Bassander completely refuses, doesn't make eye contact, is locked in, and says, "Yes, Mom, I'll obey the orders," while clenching his fist, a la Arthur. So he leaves the room following this exchange, leaving Hadrian to question Rain on her sending him here. If all he wanted was another Bassander, she hands over his sword and tells him to ready the troops. Just sort of like a general vibe of the end of this section.
This book is constantly jumping into like legend and mythology and old earth text, and you said a la Arthur, and I was like trying to figure out how this coincides with King Arthur, and so my mind was like, oh, fucking the cartoon Arthur. I was like, a la Arthur. I don't know that much about Arthurian legend, but I don't know how that.
that is absolutely. That's a natural meme. Bassander Lynn. Anytime Hadrian does anything, yeah.
Okay, cool. I was so confused for a second. I was like, how does the round table factor into this? I know we end up at kind of a round table later, but like, was there a whole Arthurian side plot that I missed in this?
No, not yet.
Okay, cool. Not yet.
That's good though. That's good. But yeah, I mean, again, we got to do a little bit of the brotherness of it all earlier, so I don't know if you have anything else to bring up there. But the Rain Smythe handing back his sword and things like that is interesting, because where the fuck did you get that lady?
I assume Karn was like, checked it out. I'm over it. Here you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting that she has the sword. There's something, I mean, inherently you're always going to like connect high matter swords to lightsabers mentally, as they are glowy swords that disappear and come back and cut through anything. So like naturally you would. This feels so Star Wars. How many times do these characters lose their lightsaber only to have it like be brought back to them, redelivered by R2-D2, given to them by the bad guy? Like it's so Star Wars. Just like and then we have this again somehow. Yeah, Hadrian throws it over his shoulder, So.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And then everybody on the internet's mad about it.
Walks out of the theaters in that exact moment. Yeah,
and I'm like, guys,
you missed the holdo maneuver, which was just as problematic.
Yeah, which also people were pissed off about. But I care more about sick ass visuals than I do about scientific realism in my Star Wars movies. Excuse me,
a sci fantasy of the
it's hardly variety. Sci-fi.
Yeah.
I don't think Star Wars can even technically like quantify itself as sci-fi, because like there's no actual science involved in Star Wars ever. It's only fictional fantasy. Like it's just a different world. It's not, there's no Earth, there's no physics, people be doing shit. It's just fantasy. You're just mad because they have beepy lights, and so you can't call it fantasy. And so they should be doing the thing where they try and be real. It's not Star Trek, guys. Like Star Trek is also bonkers and out there, but it tries to pretend like it knows what science is. Star Wars has never said that. We're back to Sun Eater. It's fine. I'm good. I'm so fine.
Anything else on Range
Shazam,
5? Yeah.
Star Wars, we're fine about all these things.
All these rants, these sub rants.
Yeah. You know what, Internet? You're right. The Last Jedi was the worst. I can't even say it. I can't even.
Oh, yeah. Can't with a good face like snub Phantom of the Menace like that.
Yeah.
For the worst movie.
Exactly.
Actually, Attack of the Clones is way worse. I don't know.
Attack of the Clones is easily the worst movie. Phantom Menace had some.
I don't know. 9's competing for that spot.
Oh, okay.
That's in my opinion. Yeah.
Attack of the Clones is the worst Star Wars film I've seen multiple times.
There's
only one I've only seen once.
Fucking got him. Yeah.
Yeah, true. Exactly. So.
I think I've watched it 3 times and it never improved. A matter of fact, I was only more flabbergasted.
Yeah.
We don't need to get into that argument.
I have left the theaters upset and just unwilling to talk to my friends I went to see the movie with twice in my life, and that was one of them. The other was Thor: Love and Thunder, but it's fine.
We've talked about that one, yeah. Both Disney era, interesting, around a similar...
Interesting.
Well,
both
different time frames.
Well, yeah, but both under the same different CEO.
Iger, yeah.
Or no, one was Iger, one was the other Bob.
I think they're both.
Are they both Iger?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But then there were good movies under Iger too, so who's to say?
Yeah, right. I mean, tough. And also, it's not Kathleen Kennedy's fault. Kathleen Kennedy also produced some of the best fucking movies that you've ever seen that you love dearly. So just shut the fuck up.
What, are you going to try and convince me E.T.'s good?
You gonna tell me that all of the Indiana Jones movies are bad? Okay, good luck. Yeah. Like, even if you don't like the later two, which is very reasonable, she still produced the first three. Fuck off.
And Crystal Skull has more to suffer from the fact that people really liked green screens in that era than it does to any actual other major issues people have.
Yeah, the only serious problem with that movie is the fridge scene. That's it. That's the only serious issue with that movie. Everything else is an Indiana Jones movie. It's fine.
People are like, aliens, really? I'm like, did you watch the other three?
Yeah. It's the worst movie, but like, it's still not bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not as legendarily awesome. So that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
With that, we'll get into like Castles of Ice. I'm a massive Indiana Jones fan. Highly recommend it, though. Anyone who's listening to this and is into Indiana Jones is like, I don't know that I like any of the new indie stuff. Go play the Bethesda game that just came out. Oh I've my heard really God.
Good things. Yeah.
Incredible. A perfect game. There are a few games that I like as much as I like.
I didn't know it was a Bethesda game.
Published by Bethesda, done by the people who did Wolfenstein, the Wolfenstein series.
Okay.
Machine Games. That's their name.
I was gonna say, Bethesda really be pulling a George R. R. Martin writing anything but Elder Scrolls 6. You know?
Yeah, it's Machine Games after they did all the Wolfenstein stuff. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So
again, they made another Nazi game. Anyway,
Ice Castles,
like Castles of Ice. So I mentioned this to Josh. This is going to be a little bit of improv just for fun, because I did all the other chapters and then came to realize when we were sitting down to record that I pulled a quote from this one and didn't do anything else.
You know, I was reading through it. I was like, yeah, cool. We'll talk about that quote and move on. No, I mean, we also, strangely enough, we've already talked about this chapter kind of this entire time. This is where the ships come in and are connecting and we see a bunch of stuff. And this is where I'm the most lost.
We kind of we don't quite get the ships connecting. That's what happens in the next chapter. This is seeing the planet ship for the first time in sort of its horrific glory. We see also the ship, the trade ships come and dock that have what we eventually come to know are the people on them. And so there's this big scary visual of this ice palace, these castles of ice. What'd you make of the idea of them traveling on these planets? These world ships. It's
something that's been kind of explained to us before, but it's really cool to actually see it. And it definitely has this feeling where it's like Bassander's there's some sort of strange planet, that moon over there. And then Hadrian's like, that's no moon. And then Valka's like, "Tis a space station." You know, we're caught in a tractor beam. They're pulling us right in. So
we've gone full Star Wars.
This section has some definitive Star Wars-isms, inherently, but I don't. Which is weird because I'm pretty sure Rocchio said he's never watched a Star Wars film. Or
definitely, I've said that a couple of times.
Definitely isn't online in multiple videos, lightsaber dueling other authors.
Yeah, absolutely not. Absolutely,
yeah. But yeah,
not dueling Pierce Brown, in a video.
Who also, I'm pretty sure has never seen a Star Wars film.
Definitely not. Never.
No, never.
Not once. Yep.
Those two guys, way too cool for Star Wars. I'll tell you that much right now. They're not some fucking nerds sitting there watching Star Wars. No, they were out playing football and getting pussy. You know what I'm saying? Maybe Pierce, but...
No, Rocchio was honing the craft,
Yeah, exactly. He was studying the sword while you were out partying.
Yeah. Also, I don't think that's true of Pierce either, for the record.
No, I don't think so.
Because he got a political science degree and was I think very introverted for a long time. But it's a whole separate thing. Because he was moving everywhere.
He just happens to be very handsome, that's all.
This is true.
But yeah, it's a big fucking mountain of space ice coming in. It's interesting to just look up and be like, oh, yep, there's the moon.
Yeah, I mean, a horrifying idea, especially as it basically eventually we don't get there, I think, until the next chapter, but it kind of births this half moon crescent thing that comes out.
Yeah.
And it there's descriptions of other ships and things that are remora tagged onto the side, which are attached to whales and sharks and things like that. Parasites basically that drop off. which is very different than like a launch bay like we see with all the human ships.
It's more like latching and dropping. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's the intention, but it definitely like successfully gives off this very alien, inhuman, outside of our development, outside of how we would think to make anything vibe. And we even talk about it a lot later, like the idea that they're using these massive like ice structure, castle, planet thing, asteroids, because the ice itself is like a radiation barrier, probably, you know, like, so it's just like such a different solution to things that we think there's one way to solve. And I think that, like, again, this is more of a later chapter thing. It's really interesting to see how to Hadrian and to like the people of the Empire, they're like, oh, they're using these dumb organic ways to do this. We have the better way, so we have the upper hand. We'll show them. It's like, you have a different way. Like, very much so unwilling to accept that possibly this is superior in ways. Theirs are superior in some ways. This might be superior in other ways that they don't understand. They don't know how fast these planet ships move. They don't know what capabilities they've come up with from creating technology based on an entirely different way of doing things, you know? So it's very interesting.
Yeah, very different. And interestingly, I love the visual image of like these ships being latched on, because it almost feels like they're parasitic in a way.
It feels very different. So just like everything about the Cielcin ship feels more organic, I guess, you know?
Right.
And that adds to that. Like, these are these little parasites that drop off instead of these neatly organized rows of ships within a launch bay. It's like the Empire is like industrial order, and the Cielcin are like biological, like directive. And those are like two inherently at odds things. And this definitely like sets that up. And we talk about that a lot more whenever we start getting into like the idea of apex predators and things like that. But yeah, so
Tigris, right? The whole Tigris speech in the next book, or in the next chapter, excuse me, for sure.
Did I read too far? Is that in the next book?
You read a whole book. We're through Damon and White.
All right, I guess let's talk about all of it. Okay, yeah. So I did accidentally read
How'd you feel about it when he used his mind powers to blow open the dashboard of that airship?
Is that a real thing that happens?
No. Why would I say that?
It would be so funny if it is, though.
Yeah, why? Who would do that?
Hadrian gets mind powers.
No, but I did want to make mention here that I'm only going to bring this up a couple of times throughout the entire podcast, only because it was a really formative thing for me. And actually, I asked Christopher about this specifically. And he said that he's never read them. But the Cielcin are very similar. We've been talking a lot about Star Wars already. To the villains of, in my opinion, the best Legend series that was written, meaning pre-Disney taking over the canon, getting rid of all the books. That was the Yusong Vong. They were this, like, they traveled similarly on planet-sized ships, like moons.
Interesting. Okay.
And they were force
resistant. A name I've heard,
entirely.
But I'm not like familiar with to a deep degree. Anything that's like Legends or like extended stuff or like a lot of Clone Wars is stuff where I'm like, all right, like obviously because I'm a Star Wars fan, I'm like honed in.
You're aware,
But like I haven't like read much of Legends like publishings, or they weren't Legends at the time, you know. But
I read all of them though. That's the difference. Is I read everything as it came out. So like I was a massive Star Wars book fan.
I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I'm a strong Star Wars fan, if that makes sense. Like the core films, like anything that is like an actual movie in theaters, I'm like very, very into. I know I would love Clone Wars. I got to do it at some point. Watched like
the new
Disney
show
Plus
just started. Yeah.
I have not watched that yet. I haven't watched The Acolyte, and Don't Murder Me. The only reason I haven't done it is because I know it's going to be my favorite Star Wars thing, and I want to do it at a time when I can like really devote space to it. I haven't seen season 2 of Andor yet. But
so good. Yeah.
Season 1 of Andor is like already maybe the best Star Wars I've seen. So like,
and season 2 is just better somehow. Like, how does that make sense? How is that possible?
But I need to watch it, but I need to finish. I can't have like too many really good shows I'm watching at once. I need like a good show, a bad show, and an anime, you know?
Absolutely. Totally get it.
Right now I'm watching White Lotus and The Pit, so it's like I got two good shows. I need like I can't throw a third one in, you know? Yeah.
For me, that's been, if I'm drawing the same lineup right now, I'm in The Boys. Invincible is my anime, although I would hesitate to call it that because it's also just a great show. And then my bad show has been watching the trial of Gerhard Koenig, and I've been watching all of the live trial of this man, of whom potentially, well, he's been convicted at this point, so it's a whole separate thing, but the conviction that he was convicted with originally came in with like attempted murder charges, downplayed to attempted manslaughter.
How do you attempt manslaughter?
Very well, exactly. So that's what's so interesting about this, because it seems like a crime of passion in a lot of ways in the moment, and they were trying to ascribe more intentionality and like precognition to it than was, I think. And this is my assumption based on, I haven't seen it all. I've only seen all of his testimony and his son's. Anyway, that's been my bad show. My bad show has been this trial footage that my girlfriend and I have been watching together, like an hour at a time, like a TV show.
Incredible.
And there's 14 hours of it between like it's crazy.
Wild.
We're watching a trial. I don't know.
I mean, my bad show is I'm just slowly reworking my way to try and finally for the first time finish Supernatural, but that's like only when I'm really drunk at night and I watch 2 episodes and I remember one of them.
That's fair. And
that's like for me, that's a month.
11/22/63. I've been doing that like 30 minutes at a time.
Okay, yeah.
Which is a very fun little miniseries. But yeah, anyway, back to the point, like the Yusong Vong series is one of my favorite Star Wars series of all time. From a book perspective, it's like 26 novels. It's excellent. There's like 9 core books, so you can like skip some of the side stuff, but it's fun. You get like a little Boba Fett side story. You get like a lot of like fun things in the middle. But it's just incredible. And these guys, the Cielcin, remind me a lot of the Vong, and the Vong are my favorite antagonists.
Okay.
So like I love seeing the Cielcin rendered in kind of a similar way, and these descriptions just evoke that immediately out of me. And Paul, Rockio has never read them, and I'm like, buddy, you created a very similar villain. We're the same age; those books were out, and he's like, no, I never read them. He read Shadow of the Empire, but none of the Vong books. So.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, right. It's cool. It's convergent evolution on an idea.
It sucks whenever whenever I was like first getting into Critical Role, and I was also DMing for the first time, and I'd come up with a crazy good idea, and then I'd watch an episode of Critical Role that came out 5 years earlier, and be like, oh, okay, well. Shit, it's time to rewrite my session next week, I guess, because one of these guys watches Critical Role, and I would have thought I was so smart, but then now I know.
God damn it! I was one layer predictable.
All right, so it's not going to be 4 dragons. It's going to be 4 beholders. 4 beholders. Yeah, it's the Vision Conclave. Yeah, that's
the
yeah.
The Spectrum Conclave.
Yeah. Oh, they can see stuff, and there's 4 of them, and they're all different colors for some reason, which I know beholders usually aren't. But and then
That said, like there are differences between the Vong and the Cielcin, importantly, but like this sort of depiction was really cool and really.
I mean, there's like adjacent. The major difference of like the Vong are in Star Wars and the Cielcin are in Sun Eater, but
absolutely, that's a big difference.
Sure. It's the only one I can think of, but
divergent evolution. Again, they aren't cannibals. The Vong are not cannibals. They don't eat people that way, so it's a little. Different.
I mean, they might just not have talked about that part.
No, they did. Highly recommend that series. I won't talk about it again outside of our wrap-up.
We are
for this
not
book.
Cannibals.
Yes. We don't eat people. We're just immune to the Force and lightsabers.
That's wild.
Fucking crazy, and they should have done that instead of everything that they did with the sequel. You had the books. You could have just done the books.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's cool. It's cool. It's fine.
You could have just written a trilogy rather than writing them one movie at a time with different writers and directors.
True. That is what they did for the original trilogy, though. So, like, let's not.
Yeah, but I would. At the end of the day, and this isn't a Star Wars podcast. This is a Sun Eater podcast, and we will get back to it. I think that there's too much obsession with trying to make Star Wars the way that they made the original trilogy, because that was a bad way to make it. That happened to work out okay, and even still, those movies are flawed as hell by today's standards. Only Empire is like really, really good, and then of course, A New Hope like is the first one and stands its ground in the fact that it's like visionary, but then like Return of the Jedi is not good. I just like it because I grew up with it, you know. So,
yeah, totally.
Yeah. So like, let's stop trying to make it. If I was 6 years old whenever I saw Rise of Skywalker for the first time, I probably would like it, and then I'd defend it until I was older, and people would be like, somehow Palpatine returned, and I'm like, you don't get it. It's cool.
I didn't have a Palpatine.
Yeah.
But he was right there. His name was Kylo Ren. He could have been really cool. It's fine. Also, he was modeled. Anyway, I don't need to get into this. I can get into
we're going to move on.
So, big castles, very scary ice ships, very cool. Transmission, kind of odd, interesting thing here that we get is we kind of get this view of this sort of precursor communication that comes over this sort of digital display from, I would say a herald is probably the best way to describe our talking head here. But there's an interesting title, and we'll get into that title more when we get the full one later here. But yeah, what did you think of our introduction?
Another time whenever my mind went to a specific thing and it was hard to shake it off. Mm-hmm. And it's such a weird thing for my mind to go to because it in itself is a parody of the million other times that we get like a ship heralding another ship's cockpit type thing. For some reason in this scene, I could only think of like Galaxy Quest whenever like Saris comes on and he's like, "Give me the Omega-13." And if that matters to anybody, then you'll know what I'm talking about. I don't know what it was, but then I started thinking about Galaxy Quest, like not even because of what the book was saying. And my mind was like, man, that's crazy that movie was supposed to be rated R, but then like they recut it right at the last second before it started marketing for theaters. And then like there's still pieces of the rated R movie that stick through there. Like you can definitely see Sigourney Weaver saying like, "What the fuck?" at one point, and they just dub it over, but they didn't even care to like try and make it not obvious. Or like you totally see Tim Allen's dick at one point, but it's just like they brought the lighting down a little, so like it's harder to tell. There's a scene where like Sigourney Weaver's running, and then the next scene her shirt's just like ripped open, and we have no clue what happened between then and there because they decided that wouldn't make it into a PG film. And then they were like Prince of Hell, and I was like, fuck, it happened again. So, like,
again, my brain blinked for a brief moment.
But I do want to like defend myself in the sense that this is what I was talking about, where whenever we start getting too much into scale of sci-fi, my mind fucking wanders. Some people that'll happen whenever we start getting into like the nitty gritty of how a magic system works in like a high fantasy book. They start doing that and I start taking notes. But as soon as someone's like, the ship is big and space is big, and these guys also have technology that sends voice to thing, but is hologram, but is not hologram, but is in front of you, but is behind you, but is within you. That's whenever I'm like, all right, Galaxy Quest is a fun movie and we're back.
Definitely fair. I think that this chapter in particular does so much of it actually is done better in the next chapter. That
I agree.
I were an editor, I think that I would suggest trimming this chapter down, shoving it on the end of the first, on the end of the next, right? Like not necessarily that it needs to be removed, and there are good notes in here, especially kind of the end of this, but like so much of this scales so well into the Prince of Hell that like why are we dividing it to some degree?
I can totally see that, and I do think I agree. So
yeah, there's a lot of great Cielcin language exposure here, though, that I do really appreciate. Like we get Karn speaking Cielcin, and Karn really takes the lead of a lot of this. So
it's also interesting that like it might be more in the next chapter, but like whenever Karn's speaking with the Cielcin, he's like using his actual voice in a way that he doesn't usually with the like humans. Yeah. So it might show like a level of deference that he holds towards the Cielcin, which starts to make sense once you start to understand like
submission and like how important that is to the culture.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. It leads to an interesting place that we kind of sit in there. But as a part of this conversation that we're having with this herald throughout this whole thing, there is this sort of like subtle nod and nodding that's happening towards Hadrian, right? Like they're talking about Tanaran, they're talking about all these things, and the 20,000 lives of 20,000 for the life of the Imperium that Smythe suggests, like giving these away. This is sort of the big reveal of the chapter, is that like these are people that are colonists that are being given away as a part of this trade. Either to become Psalms or maybe, as we learn in later chapter, as a part of a tribute to the Cielcin. There's a weird balance here. Like, where do we stand emotionally on 20,000 people? Well, 20,000 people for quadrillions? Sorry that you're food, but like, ugh.
Yeah. But it's also interesting that it's like, sorry that you're food, and then in the next chapter we see a fate worse than food that they might also be.
Right.
And it's very interesting. And I mean, it's hard to say, like, it's the classic, like, all right, we know a bomb's going off in New York, but if we stop the bomb, then they'll know that we have information that we might need to stop a bigger threat later. Whatever, that, like, classic conundrum, Cold War shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a weird place that we sit in here with the Cielcin and the immediate moment, and also this trade that we're willing to take, the lives that we're willing to trade. And man, it makes sense. Also, this is the arithmetic that Hadrian was thinking about. He's like, this is the consideration. Like, why are you so against it? And I think it's the fact that there's a number put to it now that he's like, oh God, there's like a human consequence here more than I thought.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Because this is what peace in our time takes, right?
Or don't use that word. They don't like it when you use that word.
Time?
Peace. Yeah. It means something else to the Cielcin. So.
Right. They're bound to freak out.
Yeah, which is why my name today is Josh. Unfortunate mistranslation, Ramsey, because I feel like that's 90% of this section. It's just unfortunate mistranslation.
Especially getting into the Prince of Hell, there's a lot of unfortunate mistranslations. That's where it really sparks up. To round out the end of this chapter, Karn is sort of nodding at Hadrian directly, suggesting, I think, at the very least, that the Empire's sacrifice and choice here should be one that he should scowl at and not agree with. He's kind of relating to Hadrian in an odd way here. How'd you take sort of Karn's nods to Hadrian?
I didn't catch them as much.
Yeah. Hang on. Let me just see here. Karn's eyes had not left me. An image flashed in my head. The cargo ships. I'd seen them when I'd crossed the bridge into this very chamber. Then inside, row upon row of caskets beneath their frosted lids, the slack faces of 20,000 sleeping men and women and children. See what they will sell, what they are? And that's a flashback to the, as mentioned previously. You see what they are, these friends of yours? And he says, I saw what Karn was doing. He meant to drive the wedge between myself and the Imperium just a little deeper. What his aim was, I cannot say, but I was transparent. It was as transparent to me as glass. I did not answer him. I was not sure that I could. And that cuts then in the novel to a page break with this final paragraph, which is, the world is filled with monsters, dragons in the wilderness, serpents in the garden. We must become monsters to fight them. Anyone who thinks otherwise has never really had to fight for anything. I knew where I stood, on the wall between the wilderness and the garden. Whatever humanity was, whatever it is mine and worth defending. Given the choice between the Cielcin and the human monsters, I'll choose the human every time.
Very
Which
interesting.
is him basically saying he'd side with Karn here, right?
Yeah,
he's like, I'll take that guy.
It's also really interesting where Hadrian is so mortified by Karn and by Exalted in general, and anybody who, any cyborg type human ever. It's still it's very it's very hammered into him from his imperial religious upbringing. It almost feels like he would vibe more with siding with Karn against the Empire, even in a lot of ways.
And Karn's nudging him that way. He's
yeah, exactly.
Come on, man.
It's really interesting where he's
Yeah.
He doesn't say nah, Karn. He's oh, I could see what Karn's doing, but he doesn't say he doesn't agree or it's not. He doesn't say it's not working, you know. So I am really curious though, what Karn's end game is, because I feel wedging or putting that wedge between Hadrian and the Empire is for something, but it's not necessarily just that Karn wants a better world without the Empire's Iron Fist. Karn wants something for Karn, and I don't know what it is right now between the way he's playing the Cielcin, the Empire, and Hadrian, who's kind of this weird third party in the middle. This so much of this book, especially the back half, has been more I'm so interested in Karn and what his play is than anything to do with the Cielcin, the Empire, or Hadrian.
Yeah, he's fascinating. Karn is a fascinating character. I mean, it just pulls you in that direction, right? What the fuck are you doing here?
Yeah, because there's something else going on. It has that there's the North fighting the South, and Daenerys has her dragons across the sea, but then there's also the
house.
The house. There's the White Walkers, and there's all these things. And at the end of the day, if you're a book reader of Game of Thrones, you're like, who's this weird guy on a ship with a horn that controls dragons who like disappeared for a long time and came back with like a mysterious pirate agenda and is maybe undead, like, who we never really got actually in the show, but it's fine.
They cut out most of the magic, so that is what it is.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's or like Lady Stoneheart or something like that, where it's like, I don't know if you're a main character, but like, what the fuck's going on here? This is important, right?
Like, at the very least, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And drawing my attention. Yeah.
Yeah. Karn has that like, there is something bigger than the rest of there's like the main plot that's happening, and then whatever you're doing might not actually factor into the main plot ultimately. So maybe we never know. But
that guy's doing something
wild.
Else.
Yeah, exactly. So.
That guy is playing an entirely different chess game, and you guys don't realize that you're pawns.
Yeah. There's so much where it's like, what the hell is he doing? And he's like, hey, don't worry about it.
Yeah, right. So. But I think that's what's interesting about that end section too is that like, Karn's maybe trying to key Hadrian into that. He's like, yeah, buddy, don't you see the problem? Do you not see the problem?
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
This Cielcin's not a good option either, but
no, right. Right. For sure. With that, we can get into the Prince of Hell. And we've talked about a chunk of this in part because of sort of the trade, so I've only got a couple of points that I want to touch on. But we turn to this chapter in the Grand Hangar of Karn's Demiurge. The mouth of hell opened before me, and beyond was only the blackness of space is such a strong opening line for the chapter. But realistically, we're just in a hangar bay.
yeah, we're in a hangar bay with one of those Star Wars don't think too hard about it static much fields.
Like, exactly. It's not that crazy. It's just a little static field. We get a lot of like dress here, like imperial dress, which is interesting.
Yeah.
The red boots, the sort of collars. We even get the sort of like rain smide, the ceramic guards with the wings.
While they're walking in, It's
more the garb is more Warhammer to me than it is Star Wars in a lot of ways. Obviously, we've been talking about Star Wars a lot, but like it's more like the affectation of like, hey, we are emblazoning these things with like wings and like really showing off this like Roman heritage that they claim in a lot of ways. So that makes it really interesting. But yes, it does absolutely call to mind as we're marching in this sort of like idea as, and how bright the host behind me with an exclamation point in the text. The imperial standard hung from a pole beneath the golden sculpture of the sun, and the image of his radiance, the Emperor William the 23rd, shone from a holograph plate carried like a small umbrella atop a staff. Just this like idea that they're like walking with these images and these things to like enter. And then Karn is just sort of standing there in his gold stuff. He's got Yume. He's got these flesh creatures that are so scary. I do love the description. Behind them, both faces slack and lifeless, stood 100 Psalms in rank and file, their khaki uniforms uncared for. They carried no weapons, stood to no order or attention, and that there was a weight to them and a palpable threat wholly unlike the threat of our legions. It is a testament only to the training and discipline of the Solan legions that not one of our people balked in the face of these monsters.
You know what this scene feels like? It feels like the human, like the Marines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
From Halo, meeting in a location with the Covenant from Halo, but it was like all put together by the flood.
Yeah.
And the flood's just kind of standing like,
there's some other fuckers we got to take care of.
All-Mind or whatever his name is. Yeah. It's just there. He's like, hey, see, the Marines are bad.
Marines, no good. We creepy guys, we're pretty good.
Pretty good, right? Yeah. You like what you see?
You like what you see?
Yeah. So, yeah, I love this like weird... It would be so easy to like set Karn up as like this actual threat that eventually the Cielcin and the Empire will like have to team up to fight or something. But I like that instead he's just a weird guy who like put this meeting together, and it's so uncomfortable and unsettling, and it's just a sci-fi to sci-fi tense meeting while there's just like horror over there in the corner.
Absolutely. I mean, and we get that horror as we spin into the rest of the scene, right? Darkness, chaos, the mother of demons. I watched that infinite dark give birth. Watched the black ship emerge from the darkness, blackness deeper still. Like a piece of night it was. Its shape difficult to describe, like a broken circle, its surface warped and ruined with irregular designs. So I imagine this almost like half crescent, but like pocked. Strangely.
Yeah, like again, it's I almost viewed it as like if you were to chisel a piece of obsidian, just kind of whatever shape came off, Like, there's kind of that flowing, sort of natural, more.
It's not manufactured.
This is something that's like grown in a way, almost, but not like biological. Like this is made of. This Time. Is made of like the wear and tear of existence in space, and it's more like stone than it is like steel. And it's just very interesting here.
It's freaky, and that's why it's interesting that they do have lifts as opposed to ramps, because it would be so much easier in theory to have a ramp, but they've got these lifts that descend that then let off the terror. Which was
another spot where I spent too much time trying to picture like, how do these lifts work? Is it? But it's
it's so interesting. Every war, every conquest, every treaty, every colony and colonization, and the struggle against different people seem to me practice for this great other, as like there is this sort of like ultimate confrontation as we see sort of the humans seeing the Cielcin in force, in mass, in a treaty position for the first time ever in history.
Yeah. It is a very grand opening. It definitely sets some weight here. The Great Other is like such a cool way to put it. I don't know if it's this chapter specifically, but there's this talk of like this is the first time ever humanity's experienced that like we're not the top dogs, like, oh, like there is something bigger than us for the first time ever. We're not the ones like pushing out to the stars. We're not the apex predators. Like clearly it's these guys.
I think that's a little bit more in the pavilion, but it's mentioned. It starts here.
Exactly.
It's broken between the two chapters, but
it definitely like puts a lot of weight here, and it has just kind of on edge, sitting there waiting to see what happens. It's like me and my friends setting up a meeting with like 6 bears, just being like, I hope they're chill,
Well, and then they shout, right? I could not make out the words, but I knew a war cry when I heard one, though I had never heard one before. My bones remembered. Like, that's a biological response,
Yeah. I feel like in this moment he doesn't necessarily say it, but I'm sure Hadrian has to be thinking that maybe this was all a bad idea.
It's such an interesting place to be on, especially because this leads into Yukajim, as sort of our herald pronounces, and then gives us the title of the Cielcin Aita, or Aita. It's said differently in the audiobook, for the record, in this first novel, and then is corrected subsequently. So, in part because I think the Cielcin say it in the later novels, and I don't think they really do here for the most part. But you stand before the Lord of the 17th branching, who is Aita, prince and chieftain of the Otiolo, who is Buidihom, the self-made, he who fashioned our world, who brought forth life from dead stone. He who brought us out of the chains of Utaharo, who has seen the watchers, who knows the mind of the makers, who leads us through emptiness and light, as Aranata appears for the first time, and Hadrian realizes that this isn't the face that he saw in the visions, this isn't that silver with the gemmed crown that he had mentioned before, but it is still, however, a big monstrous Cielcin with a woman in tow, horrifically in chains, as this sort of like prize in a lot of ways.
There's definitely this part in this like introduction that makes me wonder, like, okay, so if we take all of this at face value as real, it is wild to think that like maybe this person knows the mysteries of like Caliga and like the quiet. If he sees the watchers, if he knows the mind of the makers, then we are given reason to assume that means that this person has connection with, and that is like what elevates him to the very mystery that we kind of started the series on. However, it does feel more like in the same way that the Empire has their religious zealotry, and they're like, yes, old Earth birthed us from her dying womb so that we might fly to the stars. This might just be a person who's like, yeah, I've definitely spoken with the makers.
Yeah,
I know God's mind. Like it
I
might
know
just
Zeus
be like,
and Hades for sure.
It's just 2 cults, meeting with Karn Sagara standing in the middle, who probably knows, if I had to guess, more about the Quiet or Old Earth than either of them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really interesting to see. And it's like, it makes you very curious. Like, how much of this is kind of religious iconography and like building this person up as a god king, and how much of it is real? Like, maybe he has seen the Watchers. Maybe he does know the mind of the Makers. It would be weird that he can't find them and he has to send out search parties if that was the case. But yeah, definitely interesting to have that intro. And then the woman in tow in chains I think is such a good addition to this section and shifts so much. I think it's easy in a way to kind of dismiss and allow like 20,000 people were given over to the Cielcin to be eaten. But if you think 20,000 people were given over to the Cielcin, possibly to be eaten, possibly to be whatever this is, it makes it so much more horrific. Like, being delivered as a frozen steak, I assume that they're just going to thaw you and cook you. Like, it's not going to, there's not a whole lot of torture there. I'm probably won't even actually wake up.
But there is the possibility of just being this slave gift that we're introduced to as this idea,
which is just like a horrific existence that this thing is living at this point. Like, which there's a very interesting moment, and I think it is a little bit later whenever they're...
I think it's in the pavilion. I think I know what you're talking about. But...
where, like, Basander is, like, horrified by the fact that this would happen to a person, and all I can think of is, like, this is literally what you do to your Colossus slaves.
Right.
Like, yes,
but it's worth pointing out that I don't think that that's a Basander's play. Like, that's not Basander's sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He's like, humans would never do this, and I'm like, you do all the fucking time. But
yeah,
neither here nor there, you know?
Right.
Yeah, no, that's not what Basander does. It's just that he's like, look at these monsters. They don't, like, that's horrific. We would never do that. And I'm like, you kind of do to your own people frequently.
Right. If you think about, like, the imprisonment structure and, like, the way that they get...
We were also, like, introduced to you guys, like, doing ritual killings of a Cielcin gifted to a child.
Yeah.
In the first book. So, like, it's not that different. You guys are both horrific creatures.
I just think his culture is so military, you know, by comparison, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
But yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we can move on to sort of the next little bit here, which is, of course, Torvaro is translating most of this. They do hand over Tanaran temporarily to kind of talk peace between the two and like make sense of a lot of the different things, communicating a lot of what happened on Imesh, which they have a different word for, a different name for. They get kind of an update on the travels. Karn communicates like a middleman here, basically ignoring the proceedings of the Empire entirely, is sort of there like communicating as well, kind of talking over and trying to guide the conversation. I don't think less favorably, but as we understand the language more, we do understand that like he's helping as much as he possibly can. But within that, we're also introduced to Nabuta, Aranata's child, which is interesting because now we know that, I mean, like, obviously, Cielcin had to exist somehow. Like, how do they have children? What does that look like? But they do have kids. Yeah.
I think it's just interesting that, like, the kid is so big. You know, like, he's, like, basically as tall as the other Cielcin. So it's like they get their height first and then they get, like, filled out, which I guess is kind of how humans work. But
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It was like, it was played with this, like, surprise of, like, that's a child. And it's like, yeah. You know?
Yeah. And?
I assumed they would have those.
One might.
But it is interesting to see that there's like, I think that it does certainly bring up like okay, so like Aranata is the prince. So this would be like not a prince, but the prince's child. So maybe eventually a prince. We don't know who the ultimate ruler then of the Cielcin is, because it seems like it is Aranata in many ways. But then why is prince not as king? You know, or so what is this like? Is this like a religious thing where like the prince is the highest position and it's more of like a what would it be? Theocracy type situation where like the prince is the link to the makers. So is in, you know, our sense, is Aranata's child like the prince that will eventually take over for Aranata? We don't really know for sure that this is a bloodline hierarchy situation, or we don't really know how long the Pale live, how long Arenata's been here, how like will Arenata's child become Arenata? You know, is that like
right?
Is it a mantle that's taken on? I don't know. There's a lot of like questions there that kind of are implied but not really discussed. That I think just inherently, whenever you're dealing with like royal structures beyond our current understanding, and then you introduce a child to one of those royals, you're like, all right, how does this work?
Then, in addition, you throw in all this language that we're getting for the first time, which is like this mistranslation that sort of happens over the course of this, which is this sort of like idea, these different ideas and the different ways that they approach them too. You know, there's like this hold, there's like him resting his hand on his pommel of his sword as he steps up to Tanaran. Everyone kind of freaks out. And there are these different words for judgment and justice and clemency, but like those words don't exist in the Cielcin language, right? Like there is submission. All those words mean submission as they're translated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's like,
or surrender.
Yeah. Like where Tanaran asks for like give me, it's like two words that are the same, but like that are defined in a different way. I don't remember exactly what the wording is, but it's like his request of Arenata. Are you looking it up? Is that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So there was Nadaktu and Daktaru.
Okay, yeah.
The word it used for mercy, Nadaktu and Daktaru, meant different things. The first, as I've told you, was judgment, justice. The second was clemency.
Yeah. Very cool section where it's like, hey, give me mercy or give me mercy, but like the translation isn't that, and there's a definite difference between
judgment or clemency. Like that's it. Yeah.
And then that definitely brings us into this position where we have a lot of unfortunate mistranslations where they're like, we want peace from you. And the Cielcin are like, they hear like, get on your knees, bitch. You know, like, it's like very like, oh, wait, like, where's the... Well, we would like to offer trade. We want you to say woof woof, and we'll call you a good boy. And like, it's just so like off kilter the way that these conversations are like smashing against one another with like no headway.
The Aita have no equals, you know, is what he says, and then he says, and for this they will expect me to turn on Hasurum, on Pagaranmatu, and the others. Is this the way? You know, like there are these other titles that are like leveled, or like names, you know, in some way that are leveled.
Yeah, I'm like, are these other princes of like other clans? I don't know.
I think that's the intention.
Like, but yeah, so very interesting. I don't know how many Ice Planet thing ships there are. I don't know if that is like one clan is one Ice Planet ship, and there's 3 Ice Planet ships, and these are the other 2 that he's mentioned. I don't know.
Yeah, tough to say.
It's very interesting. But yeah, just this idea of like, hey, maybe we could help each other out. So you want me to be your lapdog? That's not what I said. That's what you said. Okay.
Peace is submission.
Peace is submission. Yeah. The word for peace is the word for submission.
Yeah. What a and that leads to the biggest problem of the novel so far, like this moment, right?
Yeah.
As far as we come to understand it. So that rounds out that chapter. We get into the calcenterite.
Yeah. Is calcenterite just a sci-fi word, or is it a word I should know?
It's something based off of a term, right? I looked this up earlier, and it's clearly derivative of an idea. Calcentritite is like a rock; it's a whole thing. Calcenterite, I believe, is a specific word that relates to, I think, strength in Greek, or like I sort of like strength of character, which is sort of like. He says within the section that like there's the what is it, Zenoan is sort of what Gibson preaches or practices, like he's a part of that sect, and then then instead this is like calcentrite and much more stoic in a lot of different ways, and solid, you know, sort of the ideal state, or what a lot of people think of them as, like as this whole class of, you know,
it's like it's the most scoliest order.
Yeah, exactly. It's the emblematic one. They're sort of the, you know.
Whereas it's almost implied here that Gibson is like part of the bad boys of the scoliasts, you know? the wild cards, these ones, the party school of the schools, if you will. So, yeah,
very different. Very like it's an interesting sort of read, especially because like they also mentioned that like they don't study the classics in the same sort of way. Instead, they just embody the classics, which I find interesting. It's an interesting idea, the different like scholastic orders.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, as someone who grew up a Protestant Christian, there's a lot of them, so I get it.
Yeah. There's a lot of different splits there. But we then move on to the Sciavona, of course, to discuss what is on Rainsmine's mind after this sort of initial meeting, and Hadrian finally comes to terms with the 20,000 souls that Rain is giving up here, but didn't realize the entirety of what was going to happen to them. Smythe says that she intends to make a liar of Marlowe and is really only seeking the things he mentioned on Imesh, next to nothing more. This peace, this sort of like deal, winning over one clan, maybe being enough.
Yeah.
As opposed to like the idealism that he had, which was trade, and everything else.
Right, yeah, but if they can... Rain's looking for a win here, after all this, and that's about it, so...
That's really what it boils down to, right? Like she wants just something to come back with, because she's also kind of not exactly following Hauptmann's orders here. Like she's also kind of out of line. She won't be executed, but kind of out of line.
Yeah, it's like, guys, Rain did really good. Because now it only costs $2 million for a ship to go through the Strait of Hormuz. How much was it before? 0. It was 0.
Yeah. Oh, before we did this, it was nothing, and now,
Look, before we did this, they just wanted to eat us. Now they want to dominate us.
Yeah.
So.
Now they're looking instead.
Now they're angry. They're not
like
just hungry. They're angry, and they have a bunch of us. And we also may have pissed off a pirate legend cyborg. So we're doing really well.
Yeah, there is this note as well that we kind of get clarity on the thing that we had seen before, the woman that we had described as sort of this like horrific sort of body horror-y thing, about the Cielcin and their slaves being kept as giati without use, like a collectible that they dominate.
Yeah, they mentioned like her like tendons and like the flesh between her fingers is paired away so that her hands are useless. The same thing between her toes. She's made to just be like a hobbling mess that can't do anything, and the whole point is just that like it's a point of status to be able to like have a creature that is useless. Ugh.
Yeah, nasty is right. That's the proper
like
reaction.
A collectible to dominate.
Yeah, I just think that that's like a summation, in so few words.
Yeah. Don't. Yep.
Like I've got my Barbie and I just get to shout at it. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's just like, and I think that's where like the true horror of the like thousands of frozen colonists that are being shipped over lies.
Like, is everyone like that? How many are meat pies and how many are going to be this Chianti?
Are you like I assume it won't be that many Chianti, but maybe every single one of them is, or maybe you're Chianti before your meat. Maybe this is how they season you. This is the marination process to make you more.
Yeah, I understand what you're going for. Like that's right.
Yeah. Hard to say. But that's like the kind of like horror of like your mind not knowing what's going on, seeing this terrible, terrible visage. So,
yeah. Hadrian also comes to realize that he really only has one choice, and that is to continue forward here, which is sort of the big deal. Like he has no choice in action outside of.
Real quick, back to the Giati. Sorry.
Yeah.
This
no.
just popped into my mind right now. But it is interesting that Hadrian says that this is the person he saw in his vision.
Reminiscent. Yeah.
And it's like if Hadrian in the vision knew that this was mankind and then sees the truth of what is being done, that doesn't bode well for mankind. Right. It's like we will all be this to them.
Yeah,
that's it. I just very kind of like interesting result of that vision and connection. But back to what we were. Yeah,
good call out, because it's reminiscent. It's wherein like Arenata does not match the description of the Cielcin horror that he describes.
Yeah.
This woman is at the very least emblematic and resembling the ideal, not carrying the precise things that he sees in the vision, but carrying something very similar as it had been presented in the prior chapter. But
yeah.
Kind of a horrifying visage.
That was like the one thing I wanted to talk about that I forgot to in that section. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's vision relevant. And, whenever you come up with anything, say when you want. You might draw connections, and we're past that chapter. We've done that before. That's fine.
Yeah, of course.
But he has to continue forward, not left, not right, but forward, down.
Not left, right, go.
Up, B, yeah.
That's a baby, no money. Okay.
Oh, different things. I was going with the Konami cheat, but that's cool.
I was going with, which honestly might just be a Konami cheat.
I think it's a reference to the Konami cheat.
Because it's baby, no money. So, yeah.
Right. That said, there is a reference here to Heraclitus, which I don't know that we talked about before, but also I maybe think I have on the show before. I don't know. Part of me, as I was reminiscing and like going through this, I was like, do I need to talk about this? I think I talked about it way back in Best Served Cold because there's something very similar that Monza describes that PJ also used for the rest of the series, talking about this idea of like the moment of change that is reminiscent of this quote, which is, you cannot step into the same river twice.
I don't know if we did talk about Heraclitus.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about him too much. The quote's more interesting.
But you cannot step into the same river twice. Yeah. Which I say, I've gone floating in the same river multiple times. You're not trying very hard. You just have to walk a half mile back up. I am like kind of confused by the the aphorism here. You can't step into the same river.
No, because you've experienced it, so you know what's going to happen. So you, before experience, you had an anticipation of what was going to happen. Then when you experienced it, something happened. You can never go back to the point of anticipation, right?
Someone never has a better memory than me then. So yeah.
Well, that's fair point. But that's the idea,
but
right?
No, I do understand the idea. Hot mulligan, nothing hits as hard the second time is a great line,
Well, exactly. It's the same idea. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. What I would give to read that book for the first time. Of course. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do understand that. But also it's just like, sometimes you can step into the same river twice.
You absolutely can step into the same river twice. It's just whether or not you identify it, which is also why, like, taken out of context, this is an important quote. Heraclitus, by the way, is mostly taken out of context because so much of his work was destroyed that the only thing that we have are fragments.
Interesting.
And even the people of whom were inspired by him only had fragments to work with like Plato, like Socrates, like Aristotle. He is maybe considered like he's like the philosopher for the philosophers in a lot of ways. One of the earliest in that. There's like 2 or 3 others in that camp. But it's really interesting. He held and wrote about a lot of like very paradoxical ideas because he was debating himself on these thoughts. Also, there's a good chance that he maybe was like the first documented human case of like depression in such a way, nice. and things like that. So like there's an interesting like note there within his life.
Which is interesting here. I mean, the idea of like chasing nostalgia and feeling the way you once were is a very depressed person way of looking at things. And I'm over here
misanthropic,
like, hey, man,
right?
I enjoy jumping into the river, whether I've done it before or not. I'm depressed in different ways. I don't have a There's a distinction in depression where certain people very much so. What's the word I'm looking for? Idealize the past, and that ain't me. Whenever you grew up in Fresno, California, and live in San Diego now, it's pretty easy to be like, "That was then, this is now."
Hey, man, I'll mention it again. I've said it before, but my hometown was on the front page of the New York Times 3 times, all for racist bullshit. So better to not.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Nostalgia's fun, but I don't fucks with it the same way that some people do.
Yeah. Very different. Very different. That said, Bravo Burrito still rules, and I will not hear any slander.
Hey, and if we're going to talk about food from hometowns, Fresno's got some of the.
I bet every place has good food.
Yeah, but also Fresno's where the food comes from. So like, like a large percentage of the food for the world comes from the Central Valley, California. So like, your cows is never fresher,
right?
Than just getting it from where the cows are, or the produce also. Like it's all just really. It's a food. It's agricultural. So like the food rocks. The people are bad. The infrastructure is terrible. The government is actively evil. Yeah, stuff like that.
Just normal things. Yeah. To round out Heraclitus just a little bit here to like kind of put a pin in it. He was also the guy who like first penned the idea of logos, which then led to Aristotle being like, logos isn't enough. It's also ethos and pathos. Like that's the speaking,
interesting,
the triangle tradition. Yeah. So like he was like, logic, like here's how this works. Like here's the idea. But then was amended by Aristotle.
You just said it's okay to bring up something from a past section. Okay. Can I bring up something that I meant to bring up in the last episode?
Sure. Yeah. Hit it.
And it's such a small aside, and it has very little to do with the book. It is an audiobook specific thing.
Okay. Hit it.
I mentioned at the top of last episode that there was something that pissed me off in the audiobook, and I was like, am I just dumb? And I've been wrong this whole time. Or how did this make it in the audiobook? Or is it an English thing? In the audiobook, he says Logos, and that made me really upset. Last week.
Yeah, interesting. I don't remember. I mean, again,
I will find it. I will find it, and I will send you the timestamp. But yeah,
I believe it. Yeah,
he says he's talking about like philosophy, and he says Logos, and I was like, that can't be. And maybe just the Brits say stuff weird sometimes. I mean, yeah, Alamania
they do
for sure.
Yeah, notably,
I don't think Logos is ever correct.
There's an interesting thing. So there's a big part of Final Fantasy 16, and this is such a divergence, and it will be very brief. They talk about logos, which we'd assume, but it said similar. It's logos or something like that. Like it's very adjacent to what you just said. So I wonder if it is a British thing because all of those actors in 16 are
It might
British.
just be a British thing.
So I wonder.
It might be a Pico de Gallo, you know.
Exactly. Like it's some like stupid little thing. I wonder if that's the case because like that plays such a big part of that story, and every time it was said on screen,
and I think it was said like Logos specifically.
Yeah, Logos. So, yeah, right.
Yeah, and I was like,
very close, very adjacent.
That's not how that is.
I wonder if it's British. Because,
and then I was like, am I wrong? Is Logos not right?
Also, Final Fantasy 16 banger game. Highly recommend to folks. It also is a great introduction to the series in general. So,
also The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, based off of the movie with Jim Carrey. Wildly difficult game. So.
The Simpsons Hit and Run, nothing like the TV show. Very fun. Highly recommend.
The first 30 minutes of the Hulk that was based off of the movie, not the Edward Norton one, but the one before that.
Ang Lee?
The Ang Lee one. The first 30 minutes are great. I only ever rented it, so I didn't get much past that each time, but yeah.
Excellent.
All right, so No Man and I.
I was trying to think of other like short recommendations. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
That said, as a part of that forward trajectory that Hadrian is on, we come to a conversation with Varro, and it reads and feels like a conversation as much as it does a threat from him. It's very subtle. It's well done. I think that it really paints Varro as this like interesting character as they interrogate each other as to their presence. Curious in your thoughts, and then I want to levy a question.
I mean, my thoughts don't go much beyond what was just said, so I want to have your question levied.
My question is, I find that Rocchio poses a lot of these questions through characters that I think are very interesting and compelling. However, they seldom stick around. Do you think that makes them more or less effective as points that he's trying to make? Is it meant to be like an isolated point he's trying to make about like a subsection here? Or should we be looking at something grander? Like what?
It depends on the effective. It depends on like.
I think about like biblical writing. Let me draw this example real quick.
Yeah.
I think about like biblical writing. We think about like the fact that there are all these like small anecdotes that are tucked in, being like, oh, this like one time with this guy who needed to have his blindness treated, Good Samaritan, blah blah blah. Like there's like that subsection that's supposed to inform some grander ideal. Does this feel adjacent to that, or should we be like? Would it be more effective if it were overarching?
I was going to say that the effectiveness depends on what you're viewing as the intention, I guess. Mm-hmm. I think that as a story, as a novel, as a work of entertainment-based fiction, it could be stronger if it was a bit more overarching. Mm-hmm. But as it feels like the intention of these novels is less direct storytelling and more ponderous in a certain way, to where I feel like the jumping around with these concepts coming and never coming back,
right now
is very philosophical in nature, and there's a lot of like bringing in the things that are referenced make me think that this is trying to be more of a philosophical history, more of a Bible than a novel.
Right.
You know, very much so. With the way how Hadrian's writing it too is very much so like that. It's like it's like Paul on the island at the end of days writing Revelations. You know, it's like it has this religious, philosophical, mythological component to it, and I think that it is more effective in that way to do this thing where it's just little asides, little thoughts. It feels like ancient philosophy from the future written down in the past, which is very timey-wimey.
Which is very convoluted, especially the way that you just painted that picture.
But that is, but is it not kind of?
No, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Ancient philosophy written in the future to the past, or whatever.
Right. Right.
It's it's shadows upon time. Really, is what's going on here,
right.
And I think it works really well in that way. I think in the traditional structure of a classic sci-fi novel, it takes a little to get used to.
Definitely, yeah.
And also,
this is
like,
not a normal thing. Yeah.
I think that there are spots where things could hit harder if they were a bit more overarching. But like, it works so well for this story specifically in a way that I don't know, like that it would in something else that is a more direct type of like plot and story flow. So.
And again, it's not to say that there aren't those things that are overarching. Bassander Lin, we know to be overarching at this point. Like Rain Smythe is multiple story arches.
Saltus is coming back for sure.
Yeah, Saltus is definitely there. You know,
we got a Saltus mention in book 2, which playing the long game, Chris. I respect it. I like it. Make me wait for it.
I mean, just that point though. Like there are overarching components here, but there are elements that feel siloed intentionally to make us think and consider something or see a side of the world or like, you know, kind of poke our head in like a different door for a second.
Definitely. And I mean, at the end of the day, it also does also I've had one fucking cocktail.
I just did that twice. So that's fine. Yeah.
It also does add like a state of like, how do I put it? Predictable unpredictability. I can't fucking talk right now.
Predictable.
It's unpredictable. It is predictable in the sense that like you really don't know what characters are going to stick around. Like because of the way how this is done. And some characters are there for a scene, some are there for a chapter, some are there for a section, some are there for a book, some are there for multiple books, but like it wouldn't surprise me to never see Valka again after the section. You know, like
Valka?
And I know she will be there. Like my brain knows that. But like also the way how this story has been, if all of a sudden Hadrian's like, and I just got on the Cielcin ship and we flew away, I'd be like, all right, well, that's the last time we're going to see any of those people. And this book has kind of set me up to expect that. And that's what I mean by like a predictable unpredictability.
Okay.
Where it's like, it really has you, it's less that you can predict it and more that you're not shocked whenever something shocking happens in a certain way. That's like a really interesting thing for this book, where it's like any other book would have set up this crew of characters and we would have been with Dimitri and Saltus on the ship. And I know I'm always joking about Saltus. I don't mean this one as a joke. I mean, like that would have been our crew in any other structure. And then that didn't happen. That's okay. Okay, so it was a fake out. And now we're like, we've got Kat. We're going to meet like a crew of shitty little street rats. Okay, no, well, that didn't happen. And then it's like, okay, so we do have the Colosso. That's going to be our crew. And so far, that there's some truth to that. But like, just because they made it into the next book doesn't mean to me that they're going to make it much farther than that. Like Gen's dead and Switch is gone, maybe, you know? So like,
Switch
how far
is on the outs. Yeah.
Does this crew continue with us? I don't know. Like Valka didn't show up until past halfway through, like the last book. Should I assume that just because she's here at the halfway point of this book or past the halfway point of this book, she's in the next one? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's like this interesting thing that this book definitely like plays up is like, you might have a character like
Vara. Yeah.
Vara come in. Varo.
Yeah.
Varo come in. And my assumption is this is a side character for a scene to have a moment of kind of prosaic like questioning, right? Like this is a character that's
like
come
reflection
here to
on
like
different scholiasts.
Yeah. Which is pretty common within any novel, really, you're going to have certain characters that come in just for a scene for like a moment that is more important to your main character than this character. Not every character we meet has to be a character that continues.
Critical, yeah.
But in the reverse of the Valka thing I was saying, I wouldn't be that surprised if Varro just keeps showing up. Like, I don't know, you know? And I think that's like,
keeps you on your feet.
That's the interesting thing that this has done, is it doesn't follow very classic structure of character introduction and character continuation. So unlike like the Game of Thrones thing, where it's like, oh, you're willing to, spoilers, I guess, kill Ned Stark, that's a shocker. But then from there, you're like, okay, anyone can die. This is one of those things where it's like less like anyone can die and more like,
who sticks
the story
around?
Follows Hadrian, everybody else comes and goes. Like, life is fluid that way. And I do think that that's nice. And I think that it's done in a cool way. So,
yeah, it leads to a very different story structure. And I'm glad that you've like glommed onto that, because I do think that that can be very off-putting, because it can come to a point where it's like, what characters am I intended to care about? And the reality is all of them and none of them equally. And that's sort of the reality, is like,
at the end of the day, the only
flirtatious moments, not depth. In the same way.
Only characters you care about characters in the moment if Hadrian cared about those characters in the moment, because that's what we're living in the headspace of Hadrian. And I don't even necessarily think like
Jinan, you know,
Hadrian is a character we should care about. Hadrian's just the character telling the story. That we should focus on like the storytelling here more as if we were reading like a nonfiction autobiography than a classic novel. Now, granted, this is a novel and it has to like still hit like certain novel points in order to like and it certainly has, and it will continue, I assume. But in order to be entertaining, because this is a fictional novel written for entertainment, not autobiography written at the end of someone's life because they were important. But it's written as an autobiography written at the end of someone's life because they were important. So like, it's very interesting to like, I would say this almost falls more into a similar structure to a mockumentary than it does to like a classic sci-fi novel, you know, not that it's a comedy, not that it's a documentary, but like it
shares more in common with Daisy Jones and the Six, you know, than it does like
I don't know what that is. Yeah.
So. Okay, well, it's like a mockumentary-ish of Fleetwood Mac. It's meant to be like a fictionalization of Fleetwood Mac.
It's an interview
style. Yeah,
it's a Spinal Tap. It's a Walk Hard.
Exactly.
It's Drop Dead Gorgeous.
Yeah, but a little bit more serious. Like it takes.
Yeah, exactly.
The idea there. Yeah.
So yeah, it's really interesting to have like a completely fictional but fully serious autobiography in space sci-fi about ancient philosophy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Very weird.
Weird like
combo. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that do that similar thing. Like I think, you know, I'm only 2 books in, but I will say that I still think maybe the biggest connection to any other like classic or not classic, like current sci-fi or fantasy long ongoing series that I feel structurally is to Farseer.
That's like a logical comparison that I've seen a lot of people draw that have read more than either of us have. And again, I've mentioned that I think that like Realm of the Elderlings is on our future path potentially.
Yeah. And I'm going to finish the third one because we're both, you know, where we are. Everything after that, like all saved for the show. I think it just kind of like makes some logical sense for us to maybe do that on this show.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think that like, in my opinion, you know, our future trajectory is this Red God, hopefully by the time we're done with all these books, then then we go into the Dark Tower. But
do we jump back into A Song of Ice and Fire if it ever comes out?
If it does, sure. Okay, but like not until then. And also that'd be more of a vice versa read because I've read only the first book physically and then like I know a lot of the rest of the story, but like
interesting. See, I've read through Dance of Dragons, so
right. Yeah, I've not. So
would be wild. It is so different. And
I understand the divergence anyway. We don't
you know A Song of Ice and Fire like I know Star Wars.
Yes, that's actually probably a good comparison.
You're in the trenches. You're aware.
More aware than most, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I would say I'm more aware of Star Wars shit than most.
You know, like
and I haven't. So
right. Well, there we go. So to round out this chapter, you know, with this lovely kind of, I think like you kind of hit on the core of this story really in an eloquent way. I think that we might even cut that into like a little short thing because I think it is like a great.
That might be like a good way to just say, "Hey, here's a blurb of what this story."
Here's a blurb of what this story is in so many words
from a guy in the middle of it who I think likes it.
Well, yeah, it's. I mean, I
do. I'm really enjoying it, but
it's very different. It is a very different story in a lot of ways, and I do think it does take you hitting. Like the first book is interesting, not necessarily great. It's very good, and the second book, if you like it, you're fucking in. You know what I mean? Like you're in.
Yeah.
And if you don't like the third book, I don't know what's like. Okay, don't read further. For most people, unfortunately, I'm going to bully you into reading. Further. You have no choice.
I enjoyed the first book quite a bit. I'm really, really, really liking the second book.
Right.
Everything since Brethren has been like pretty like nail biting. I'm here.
Yeah. But oh man, I love this book. I love this book.
It's like everybody who tells me they were kind of let down by Red Rising, like it was good, but it wasn't really for them, so they didn't start Golden Sun, and I just want to
punch him in the face.
Hair out. Yeah, exactly. Because I get it. You know, read Golden Sun. It's fine.
Yeah, right. Shut up. Read the next book. Like,
look, if you finish Golden Sun, and I don't mean if you start reading Golden Sun, I mean if you finish Golden Sun. If you read the last page of Golden Sun and you don't like this series, then we can just shake hands and agree to disagree and move on.
Yeah, and that's fine. And you can move on.
And that's fine. People have different tastes than me.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of critiques for the series as a whole from people who've read all of it. For Red Rising specifically, I don't listen to critiques for the series because I haven't finished the series and I will get spoilers. That I agree with. I just or I agree with logically, but not emotionally. And I'm like, all right, cool. That you're not wrong, but also I don't feel that way, so fuck off.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, so this is a series that I think isn't for everybody, but I also know just by existing on the internet and like Red Rising spaces specifically that this is a series people feel very strongly about whenever they do identify with it.
Yes. Yeah.
Apparently there's a competition that nobody told anybody else about between a certain subsect of the most toxic Red Rising fans and a certain subsect of the most toxic Sun Eater fans that were at war with each other. And I'm like, hey, what if there were just two good series that weren't even that similar?
Right. And also, the authors are friends, and they enjoy each other's company, and that's great. Like, they love talking to each other now.
It's, it's kind of that Star Wars, Star Trek thing. It's like, they're really not that similar, and they pull from each other a ton.
Right. They overlap accidentally.
A lot of people work on both.
Right. To round out this chapter, and I think
some
that this
people
is an
ruined
both. Very true. Like, there's no reason for us to go so deep in so many ways in this direction.
Yeah,
you know in my opinion, if you really want to compare the two and you want to draw this sort of like firm line, Pierce Brown is C.S. Lewis, and Tolkien is
Rocchio. That's actually such a good way to put it, because Lewis was writing digestible, fast-paced books that were better than like they should be. Mm-hmm. And then got weird into writing like very grown up space opera shit halfway through. Like Red Rising is the Narnia series.
Absolutely. I think
the
that's very
half
logical.
of Red Rising, the second trilogy, is the space trilogy by C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, totally.
Where we get way weirder with it for no reason, but it's better.
And Rocchio is going deep in weird directions that like no one else would do ever, which is very Tolkien.
Really, really enjoys linguistics.
Yeah,
cares more about like describing how he doesn't like wine than he does about describing how these ships work, which I appreciate because I care more about wine than mechanics. Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It really is a Lewis Rocchio situation.
Lewis Tolkien, but also you could say Pierce.
yes.
You'd say Pierce.
It's a real Pierce Tolkien situation. It's a real Lewis Rocchio situation. You know, history is circles; they're just not perfectly round. And and then like Abercrombie's chilling over here like he's writing Dune, just like he's just smoking. He's just smoking. He's like, what if the world was?
I've had 4 cigars today.
What if half of everybody that read my books didn't understand him and quit after the first one? Fuck, who wrote Dune?
Write this whole other series.
Herbert. Yeah, I was like, Abercrombie's over here like Herbert, just writing upsetting stories about the reality of capitalism in our world that people will quit after one book.
Right. Absolutely. Ripping cigs. So I do want to round out this chapter with, I think, one of my favorite like little subsections that we get for most of this. Again, Hadrian gets this like small tirade within him talking about lies, And I love this little paragraph. The shadow of something like my brother Crispin moved in me, and it was all I could do to not seize the scholiast by the tunic front. I backed off instead. Rage is blindness, I told myself, made to recall Imor's aphorism by the familiar green of Varro's clothes. I was a liar. I am a liar. I have no illusions about this, but I'm a liar in the service of truth, capital T truth, or so I tell myself, in the service of good, capital G good, which is the same thing. I have told my lies because they ennobled me, whereas lying in service to the empire, to an empire that might sell its own people to the pale, such lies diminish me.
Yeah, we could actually like
validating lies. Yeah,
almost the most honest like look into who Hadrian views himself as here.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one
lie.
of the yeah. I mean, and what villain of history didn't believe their lie was noble? But like, I think that this is the most like truly. And it's weird because this is a moment of justification, like self-justification. This is a moment that should feel, and maybe on like a surface level read, feels very noble. I think that this line is the most villainous I've felt Hadrian be. And this because it's future Hadrian too.
Right.
It's him like it feels so like Thanos looking over a grateful universe or whatever. Like he's like, yeah, I did what I had to do because for the greater good.
You're so close. I mean, you didn't even mention it, but like the next line that he says, I could explain none of this to Tor Varro. At the time, I could not have explained it to myself. I knew only that my affront and instinct for rightness rebelled at his words, and I said, I do my duty, which is both like a confirmation of current Hadrian and old Hadrian. Like that's so good. That's such good writing.
It really it's interesting because
but the Thanos comparison was excellent
because we're reading this story from Hadrian's perspective. It's so interesting how very like villainous it's implied he becomes, and but we don't know what that looks like. Like we don't know what atrocities he commits. But he gets some names we haven't gotten to yet.
Yeah, right. We're not even half mortal. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we've heard it, but we hear these things from Hadrian's own mouth, so inherently they're like self-justifying in a way. But like that's such a red flag.
It should be thought of such. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, my boy. It's like if Aaron Yeager wrote us the story from the future. Like that's what it feels like, and
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I brought up Dune as Abercrombie, but like this is very Paul Atreides. This is very Aaron Yeager to me early on in this story. And maybe I'm not supposed to pick up on that much early on, but whenever you read a book like this a little bit at a time where you sit down and talk about it after reading it 3 times, like you start to pick up on like, hey, maybe this guy's kind of destined to be like a villain.
What's interesting too, it's worth noting upon because you brought up anime a couple of times within this episode itself. Rockio is very directly inspired by animated video games that are of that style and everything like that. Like he was very much a Toonami kid. I don't want to put that on him necessarily, but like similarly to the way that we were raised at the time, right? But even more so, he read and loved Berserk, and like there's a lot of Kentaro.
I need to read Berserk. Berserk is one of those things I'm aware of but haven't read.
Yeah, I've been making my way through. I've only bought the first like collected volume, and I've only made it through the first couple, and I'm very excited to read further, but I've watched the couple of different adaptations through till their ends. And it's excellent. I really love it, and I understand that it's not quite the same style, and like there's something very unique about like his own drawings, Kentaro's drawings. But yeah, I mean, there's some clear parallels with anime storytelling as well throughout this that is interesting because that's like high energy storytelling.
Yeah, for sure.
The opposite. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Whenever you get into Attack on Titan, I was so frustrated with Attack on Titan for a lot of the reasons that this book would have frustrated me. I think if I hadn't read it or watched Attack on Titan.
Oh,
first,
interesting. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of not explaining things. There's a lot of characters coming and going. There's a lot of like, where's the through line? What's the plot? Where's the structure? And then it all comes together in a way that's just so fucking satisfying and terrible and great. Not that Attack on Titan is the first to do anything that it did. Like I am very self-aware that Attack on Titan is probably my favorite anime I've ever watched. I'm not so dense to think that like it hasn't been done before in other ways, in different ways, and even some people say better ways. There's one specific anime that I know everybody like gets on my ass about if I mention Attack on Titan being my favorite that I haven't seen. I can't remember
Evangelion?
it. Oh, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna shout at my wife real quick. She also was with me on Attack on Titan, but she'll know this one.
Yeah.
Leslie, what's the name of the anime that Liz gets mad about us whenever we talk about Attack on Titan? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Thank you. I love you. You're beautiful. Code Geass.
Okay.
Apparently a wildly similar story, according to our friend. But, at the end of the day, yeah, everybody's just rewriting Greek mythology.
Yeah.
I don't give a about that sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah,
and also like modern atrocities.
Yeah, this is a big swerve, sure. But I just wanted to say, like, this story to me feels Sun Eater specifically, back to that, feels so unique and so interesting, and also very much so on the shoulders of Giants Before It. And I love that it feels a little bit like Attack on Titan, and it feels like Star Wars, and it feels like Dune, and
it's evocative of those things.
Yeah. Exactly. I would rather a story that like wears its inspirations like on its sleeve and then takes them in interesting new directions, and like I love that, and I think that this definitely does that. Whenever someone's like, I'm doing something new, I'm like, you're definitely going to hit that thing we talked about earlier, maybe in the Devil's Cut, maybe in the episode, I'm not sure, where you're like, hey, I wrote a perfectly new D&D thing. Oh, no, that's been done.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Yeah. Right. Not again. Yeah.
Yeah. Parallel evolution, I think you would call it.
Yes. That's generally the way that that would be discussed. Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like storytelling is always just going to be human experience. Human experience is limited to human experience. So we're all going to tell the same stories in different ways.
It's going to be mirrors. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mimetic is sort of the actual word for it.
Medic?
Mimetic, which is the basis of
I just thought you had a stutter.
Right. No. Mimetic, which is the basis of
mad. Spit it out, Junior.
Yeah. But it's the basis of meme for a reason. Like memes are mimetic, and the idea is like this mimetic identity, which is something that is copied or like proliferates based on the way that we share and think about things, the way that our structures exist to like make us think about things. So
I didn't know they had memes back
then. Identity.
Actually, they did have memes back then. They quite literally did have memes forever.
Well, that's the point. Yeah.
Cave drawings were literally fucking memes, but it's fine.
Yeah.
I think it's so funny when you realize that there's like dick jokes on walls from like ancient humans.
Absolutely.
I think that there's so much reverence for the past and for history, and you forget that we've always been these pieces of shit.
Right. Well, and contradictory,
which kind of comes into play here. We've always been like this, and we always will be, because Hadrian's still writing dick jokes about his one-eyed soldier standing at attention.
Right. Absolutely.
And that might be like the most telling thing, that in humanity, 3 things will persist. We're going to keep killing each other. We're going to keep expanding and learning and trying and progressing. And we're going to keep telling dick jokes.
Yeah. Forever. Non-stop.
Forever.
Forever.
War, progress, and dicks. Those are the 3 things that humanity will never get away from.
This ties in really well, actually, with the next title, which is No Man an Island, in its own way, where it's like, we are the culture in so many different ways.
Yeah, and humanity isn't that different from our historic brethren or our future trajectory. I think like humans are humans. We just exist in different worlds.
But that's what's interesting about this chapter, is we really get into that idea as we turn to older Hadrian, of whom has helped those of the cloister he is in dictating stories.
I laughed out loud at the beginning of this chapter, by the way.
Yeah, right? Just like the idea, or like what? What about it?
Just because I was thinking to myself at the end of the last chapter, it's been a while since Hadrian just talked about something that was not in the book. Like, I had that actual thought. I was like, I bet he's going to wax poetic. And not only did he wax poetic, he went all the way to talking about a different timeline, a different story, a different thing. It wasn't actually as waxy poetic as I thought, but I was like, I remember like listening to it, and I was like, all right, we're getting to the end of this like conversation with Varro that's very philosophical. I bet you anything the next chapter is going to be just Hadrian thinking about stuff. And then Hadrian's like, it's been 3 days. It's been a day since that happened in our story. It's been 3 days since I wrote because I had to go help with a well. I was like, oh, here we go.
I had to go dig a well.
You know, like, but then it actually ended up being like not as waxy poetic. But yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting though to get an idea of like, okay, so he's living in this cloister. It's very distinct that we've still not been told what creature this cloister is. We don't know that this is a human cloister or a Cielcin cloister or a cloister of the Seekers or the Makers or the Quiet or the Deep or the Americanii. Like, we really don't know who has Hadrian at the end of this. I feel like there's implication that it's human, but like never confirmation.
No confirmation. Although I do think we know
that it's ink, but it's weird colored. It's on what?
Colchis, which is a planet that's been identified. We also,
Do we know anything about Colchis currently in the story?
It's a scoliest planet. That's what we understand.
So he's probably being imprisoned-ish by the Scoliest, which is the happiest ending that Hadrian could possibly get.
In some way, yeah.
It's
what he
very
wants.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, as of right now.
Yeah. But yeah, old Hadrian is here. You know, he reflects on the multitudes that we contain, community and self, and that they aren't clearly as divided as many might postulate. This leads to like a really interesting sort of like set of things. But I did want to point out there's this Decanid gate, and I'm curious if anyone of whom is a fan of the show has any idea what this might be. The internet claims that it could be connected with Neil Stephenson's Anathema, of which I have not read. I have a friend of mine who's read it. I asked him, but he has not gotten back to me quite yet on that. But I really don't feel like it's as clearly defined. It's interesting. Doesn't really matter. That's a question for people out there. We contain multitudes is a quote from Walt Whitman. I read my story or Song of Myself, for the first time this last year. I've actually got like a little leather-bound copy right there that I got really inexpensively that, oh my God, it's the best thing. I've been exploring Walt Whitman slowly. And it's been just excellent because fuck, that man can write as far as that quote goes.
Familiar with the existence of Walt Whitman, and I certainly know the line, we contain multitudes, but no, I have not read.
Yeah, most people haven't. Yeah.
I'm down.
Which is totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah. But then we get into this quote that I think kind of dissects a lot of these different ideas from Rakia, which is, one may be a part of a community. One is an individual. They are not mutually exclusive. It is only that the soul, the self, should lead and our allegiances follow. To do otherwise, to be otherwise, is to make oneself a slave. And this is an interesting idea. I don't know that I entirely disagree with it throughout the entirety of it, but like, there are parts. Yeah.
This idea to me feels like a prompt for a debate class.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
it's so pull apartable. It's so right and so wrong at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely takes a stance from like a very Western individualistic ideal.
Mm-hmm.
But also, do I disagree with it entirely? I don't know. Like, it's
one is a part of a community, but one is self, you know?
Yeah, one may be a part of a community. One is an individual.
Yeah.
But then also, like, I don't know, there's this...
Like, it's nowhere near objectivism and, like, Ayn Rand or, like, even, like, a lot of, like, Kant and sort of, like, a lot of other, like, self-idealists. But, yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. And it's, like, it's aggressive without saying a ton because it's a little, like, back and forth. So then whenever it's, like... to do otherwise, to be otherwise, is to make oneself a slave. And it's like, but you didn't take a super hard stance there either. So I'm like, so are we just a slave no matter what? Like, I don't know.
I feel like it's saying that if you don't acknowledge the self, like if you miss who you are and you just sign up for those things, you are making yourself a slave to like an ideal or a community or something like that without knowing who you are entering that space.
Yeah,
right?
which I think that inherently that is a very agreeable thing, but just like it's stated in such a broad sense that like it is only that the soul, the self, should lead and our allegiances follow. Makes some sense to me, but it also is such a... that implies that we as ourself, like, it's also a narcissistic view, I guess.
Absolutely.
In a sense,
yeah.
Where it's like, well, you just got to do what you think is right, and you can never like sit and question and be willing to like be led by a collective or a group or a older, stronger wisdom that is maybe beyond what you currently understand, so that you can like elevate yourself.
It's distancing itself from that, but it's also suggesting to know oneself would then mean that you can join a community in which it exists.
Yes,
that way,
exactly.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a very like, it's weirdly written almost in a way that seems like antagonistic, but feels very inclusive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that the thing that it's missing is that element of like, you have to know yourself before you can join a community. Otherwise you're losing yourself in the community. Yes. Right.
Yeah. But also being in a community is a good way to get to know yourself.
It can be, yeah.
Like I wouldn't know. I am not a religious person. I don't attribute myself to any sort of affiliation with the church, but I found out who I was through that community.
Fair.
And I found out that I didn't belong to that community.
But a lot of people can just be led by that without understanding who they are.
Yes,
right? Like
definitely.
That's the other side of that coin.
But I do think that a lot of the people that like find themselves drifting with the community are doing so because they view themselves so individualistically. So somebody who only views themselves through the lens of who they are and how they feel will feel connection through a community and be like, then this community is right because I feel this way, and never actually like have the second to step out, feel empathetically, and connect themselves to a broader world that would have told them that actually this community is harmful, or actually this community is not fitting to you because there's more out there than what you currently understand or comprehend. And so it gets weird.
Yeah, which is fun. Like, it's a paradox.
Yeah,
it is.
It is paradoxical inherently.
Yeah. A lot of this section, I think, is very interesting because it does, like we said, two rivers, right? You never step into two rivers twice. And then we're dissecting that for the rest of the week in a weird way.
Very much so, yeah.
So, yeah.
But yeah, personally, I think we find ourselves through community.
Yeah.
Individualism, it can cause almost like cult following type behavior because you're so focused on how you feel and what's going on with you that you don't actually understand how your community exists within the larger community that is the global community, or even the township you live in, or anything else, like.
But also sometimes the only way that you break out of the community is by seeing yourself and
you have
to
embrace individualism within that. But like empathy and collective thinking is the only way that I've ever been able to actually figure out who I am, because I was so locked into who I was told I was by a community as an individual. So it's very convoluted, and yeah, we can move on. But
I think that's the point of this. Is it's meant to be like, Hadrian is saying this thing as like a singular fact, but also like this is an interrogation naturally that you can have against this. What's interesting is he mentions, obviously, Heraclitus, like we talked about before. This is a very logos presenting perspective. That's why Aristotle also dissected it into ethos and pathos, in addition to logos,
which is an expansion on that, which is kind of what I'm talking about as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, so exactly.
You need the like multifaceted approach to understand where someone's coming from a rhetorical device perspective, yada yada yada. But that's also, for the record, that's Rocchio's field of study. He wasn't an English major. He was a classics, a rhetoric. He was like English at the core of language and ideas. So that's why he kind of hits on these notes.
Yeah, definitely.
To draw it out of us. So, yeah. We then moved, though, to current Hadrian dreaming of Gibson, talking to him and interrogating the difficult task at hand of bringing the Cielcin to an agreement at this table. This quickly gives way to something larger as Gibson stands out above a sea of black, eyes sparkling and discussing paradoxes of life and the conjunctions of opposite worlds.
It's also like,
again, getting into what we were just talking about.
Tall as fuck for some reason all of a sudden.
Yeah, he's just like, ooh, he's very, we already made the joke about anime, but like this is like a very dreamy sort of state.
This isn't so much dissecting like the words on page, but this scene made me think like, man, if this was ever adapted into like a live action television show, it'd be so hard to cast Gibson, because it has to be someone who has a lot of gravitas, can certainly like play the role, be the person, set this whole thing in motion, has to be someone who really kills it, who's also down to pop back in twice a season in the future for like a nothing shoot.
In ideal world, I think Stellan Skarsgård. Like I
don't know if you can get Stellan Skarsgård to just pop in for this.
Well, or maybe Willem Dafoe. Like Dafoe.
Dafoe might be down actually, as long as the director is someone that Dafoe likes for that episode.
But I think Skarsgård has the energy that I want out of a Gibson.
Definitely,
yeah. Dafoe could do it though, without a doubt.
I almost feel like you got to get someone who's like super unemployed currently.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. Right. There are also better castings. I'm just trying to think about
what if we just let Gibson be problematic, and we just cast
Patrick
Dennis Quaid.
Stewart could be an incredible Gibson, but not doing it,
not at all.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's very interesting though. Like Gibson's always popping back up, always within Hadrian's mind. But then there's like this implication that's like, is Gibson truly just a memory, just a dream? Is this Hadrian just thinking that? Is there more going on here? Because we don't really know.
Is Brethren here? Yeah.
With Brethren. Yeah, we don't know. Was Gibson involved in this whole thing from the beginning to some degree? Because it also, like, it constantly feels like Hadrian was so specifically tailored for this, like, journey that he was sent on. And, like, Brethren talks about how, like, they, like, kind of made Hadrian into who he is so that he could be who they need him to be, and they need a soldier and all this. And it's like, I don't know. Did they choose him because Hadrian was trained by Gibson in the past/future to them at the time, and that's like a person that would work really well? Or was Gibson specifically planted to make Hadrian who he needed to be? It gets so heady.
It gets very heady. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And only questions to be asked and no answers.
So you're here and you're like, hey, Brethren can do these visions. Is this Gibson within Brethren? Is this Brethren being Gibson from Hadrian's memories? Was Gibson always Brethren? I don't know. So.
Yeah. The human is the flesh of the machine in so many ways, but also...
Yeah, Brethren's just the messenger for something broader and greater and stranger than Brethren, so...
Yeah, right. Is Gibson the messenger the whole time? The monster? Tough to say.
Yeah. Gibson's probably just an old man, but, I don't know.
Just seems like an old man at the very least,
really don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Gibson ever exist?
Maybe not. Who knows?
It's a figment of Hadrian's imagination.
That said, they do settle into an old rhythm that feels like something that we've experienced between them before, while they're determining this logic game that they're playing between the two of them. Hadrian initially thinks to win before Gibson asks him who he is, and denies every example of his friends commenting at him and to him before Gibson, Cullen, and I mean this because he's sparkly like a fucking vampire.
Yes.
And he's described as such many times, says, "You are what is left when all of that is gone. You are the part of you that survives these changes. The only part in his ship old Theseus could not replace was Theseus himself.
Yeah. So good. So good. And then they start talking about threads and the Minotaur's, maze, and then they got a knot going on. There's so much mythology here, and I'm like, all of these I'm familiar with. None of these I know that well. We're talking about a lot of stuff. I didn't.
We go from this to Alexander to the Gordian knot.
Should just start with like a brief blurb of required reading for the week.
Yeah, right. The man is pulling on a lot of different stuff here.
Yeah. And it's all tangential to itself. It's all like a lot of the same general mythology. But like, come on, my guy.
He's using it intentionally as an illusion, obviously. Like, we here are stuck in this situation like the Gordian knot. What do we have to do? We have to go through the Gordian knot. Forward and down, never left nor right, right? Like, yeah. That's the thought. This is the difficulty in which they face.
Also, the Gordian knot is such a fun thing because like it comes up so much in like modern media, in different like retellings of different like Mulan using the weights to her advantage to climb the pole, or more specifically Captain America taking the pin out. That's just so that story, to get the flag on the ground. It's just like finding like the simple solution that's outside of the rules but not explicitly stated. I don't know. That was another thing where I got caught in it. I'm like, how many times does like a Gordian knot come up in modern media that I can think of right now? And then I was thinking about that, and then he was like, the pavilion. And I was like, fuck. So
I mean, I can think about most of the book series that we've read that like we've covered on the show, wherein something that presents itself as a Kobayashi Maru or a Gordian knot presents itself where it's like, oh, it's unsolvable in so many ways. And the answer is often break the rules, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's where I got locked in. I also do really love like the only thing Theseus couldn't change about his ship was Theseus itself. You can take the Theseus out the ship, but you'll never take the ship out the Theseus,
Right.
Or probably
he's going to be there.
Reverse it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, since reading, like, the Ship of Theseus is something I was already generally familiar with, but for some reason, since reading this book, I've found that, like, in general conversations and just, like, hanging out with people, I bring up the Ship of Theseus a lot.
Yeah,
because he does. You know, it's just, like, concept, on my mind all the time. Yeah, so...
Yeah, absolutely. Totally love it. With that, I think we can get into the pavilion here. We open with a march similar to the one that we saw earlier as the Empire moves through, but my eye was drawn more to the Psalms as they are described this time versus they were described earlier. Some wore the khaki uniforms I had so often seen, though still others were naked, the black metal of their implants dull, indicator lights gleaming in the flesh flush with fever. Really frightening Hadrian is that we are back in the park here where he first glimpsed Ren, the same tree, same hill, and all, like we mentioned earlier. There's this sort of unnatural nature to this.
Yeah, I like that the like unkempt khaki uniforms of these like unrank and filed Psalms, those are like the most presentable. The rest are just like weird flesh engines that do Karn's bidding. We don't know how many naked ass Psalms there are, you know, like
right. And also like flush with fever suggests that their flesh is rejecting metal.
No, they're just, you know what I mean?
Like,
yeah, but at the end of the day, as long as the implants keep them moving, they'll keep moving
until they stop.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I want to know like where Karn is like. I mean, I guess the Psalms are probably the answer to this, but like manufacturing all of this, like where do the raw materials come from?
Yeah,
because this is like an insane amount of like steel, porcelain, copper, you know, like
yeah.
At the end of the day, he has to have a fuck ton of materials to make this many Psalms, right? Like, so
yeah, there's the other side of this too, where it's like, well, clearly the Psalms last longer than humans do, right? Like, not only is it flush with fever, but it manages better than the heart does or than anything else does.
Yeah,
it's just sick in a different way.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, being in the same place, this definitely leads credence to that idea that like wherever Hadrian was found by the Empire was not Vorgossos. We are not with. I mean, like, has Hadrian asked, like, "Hey, did you guys find a planet or did you find a pyramid?" He's like, "Yeah, there's a Americani demon in there," and they're like, "Oh, someone in the pyramid?" You know, like, no, below the pyramid in the ocean. They're like, "Ocean, we found a pyramid." You know, like this conversation has not come up because he's being coy and weird. But like, yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know where he was found. We don't know if Vorgossos moves. We don't know if just the pyramid moves. We don't know where he.
But we know that this is not Vorgossos at the very least.
But we know that we're in the same place that we were in on Vorgossos. So
right on Vorgossos, right?
Yeah. So there's a confusion here. Like, okay, this is the same place I was whenever I was on Vorgossos, and I found this, but we're not on Vorgossos. We're on the Demiurge, and it's a bunch of naked robots. And I'm back in the fucking park again, you know? So, like, it's,
right. Back in that fucking park again.
Yep.
That said, we do get our sort of assemblage of people here. Smythe, Crosslane, Basander, Jinan, Torvaro, and Hadrian are allowed to sit at this table after they're marched in with their coterie under the Golden Pavilion, leaving their troops behind. Facing opposite, Prince Arenata Otiolo with his son Nabuta and Herald Oliacom, that we did get the name before, as well as Tanaran sit opposite, with Karn Sagara sitting there just at the base of the tree, you know, touching the tree bark, basically, which is sort of a fascinating way of being like the king at the table, not needing to even sit at the table, just sitting adjacent to it. It feels
you can look at the table and be like, that's my table.
Yeah. And
you
also
guys
he can speak without being
table.
sitting there. You know what I mean? Like he's there without being there.
Yeah.
It's interesting. As such, negotiations start proper between the two, with Smythe opening the door to speaking of forestalling violence and ending the war.
And it goes really well.
Really well.
Yeah.
I have observed such behavior in the junior ministers of many a Palatine court, though in the Cielcin, I think behavior was more extreme. Human beings have their hierarchies as is only proper and inescapable. We'll get to that. But in us, it has always seemed to me such deference was built upon respect, on the competency of individuals and their mutual support. But I sensed in these creatures only the morality of the wolf, that if Tanaran or the other were to challenge Arenata, the great chieftain would kill them in an instant and make the other lick his heel. In men, such tyrants are always destroyed. We little tolerate such demons in ourselves. In the Cielcin, it seemed such tyrants thrived.
Yeah, I mean, it really is just like a different inherent animalistic structure at this point. Like,
right. We get into the tigress here too, as well.
Yeah,
like
and this is very much so that thing. It's like the Cielcin are built upon submission and deference to an ultimate dominator, whereas like if we go back up to like the thing we talked about a lot about, like humanity is built on the idea of like individualism informing our community, whereas the Cielcin inherently exist within community to serve
an individual.
Yeah, so it's like it's very inherently opposite, I guess. But also like, I mean, as a human, you can kind of understand this approach. It comes from like it is very like a dominating cult centric thing, but like Hadrian was saying, you know, we would eventually, the Ides of March come for any man who becomes Arenata, you know, so it's just interesting to like see how the culture's fully built around entire deference to this prince.
Yeah, it is such that it represents the prince, but also I don't think that Hadrian fully grasps what we're grasping from like a countenance at this point of like the difference between the community layers and like the way that the things support themselves. He says, you know, again, like I mentioned this earlier, but human beings have their hierarchies as is only proper and inescapable. I don't think it's proper. I think it is inescapable, for the record. But it is sort of just like the natural order of things.
But of course, Hadrian would think it's proper
differently. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So he thinks it's proper, which is totally acceptable.
It's super easy to think that hierarchy is proper when you're a prince, but
absolutely. But in addition, like the fact that he doesn't actually put that in the opposite shoe and understand that like it is also, this is their proper hierarchy in the way that they communicate, the way that their language exists. They don't have space for this. They've never have.
I also
what
think
reason could they have to never have space for this?
There's an interesting aspect to it as well, where we're talking about how like this inhuman groveling of putting yourself below this person who could kill you in an instant and everyone else would just lick your heel tells me again that Hadrian doesn't understand that this is how a lot of plebeians live.
Yeah, right.
I don't think Hadrian realizes that the reason he can't see the Cielcin culture here, or so many of them that are here can't see it, is because it is the nobles coming to meet with the Cielcin, the people who are used to being treated with respect and as individuals, and the Cielcin see them as less than they see a plebeian. But you have to like acknowledge that you see other humans this way in order to even kind of comprehend how to approach this in a way. Like this is not, Hadrian has to understand that this is not them negotiating, or not even just Hadrian, Reign. The Empire has to understand that this isn't them negotiating from a place of two nobles transacting a trade route. This is them negotiating from a place where they are the Umad. So like, how could the Umad possibly gain their own freedom? Or what could the Umad give you? And what would you not be offended by? And they cannot possibly put themselves in the headspace of that. So
Reign's best suited to your point.
Yes,
again, because she's like outside of the Palatine class and has like worked her way in. So she's like well suited to this conversation, but still not well equipped enough to like negotiate and manage a lot of that on the whole. Again, because of just the base nature of humanity as we're presented versus the Cielcin.
And I do like actually, now that I bring up the Umad, there's an interesting parallel there where like I do think the Cielcin kind of view humanity as the Umad in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And it's so interesting how horrified, mortified everybody is by the way the Cielcin would eat us and consider us food. And we're like, hey, what if you just stopped eating our planets? And they're like, so you want us to starve? Like, there's this like horrific, like we can never negotiate.
We doubled in size.
No way we could all live here. And they don't consider the fact that they've done that to so many other not extra Solarians, Xenobites. So many other Xenobites here in this world dysfunction, you know. So.
Well, and it's different for them because this is the first time that they're meeting equally, which is something that you mentioned earlier. Like this is the first time we're meeting someone.
I'd say we're kind of meeting the Cielcin from the back foot. They just can't admit that to themselves because some of their technology is better, but like the Cielcin clearly, to me, have a greater understanding of like the natural biography of the universe. Biology. I said biography.
Yeah, I
don't think they have a book.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the biography as like a thing that was written to like describe it, maybe that is also including of the biology. But
I think that they are further within this entire kind of
ecosystem
existence within the greater space than maybe humanity is. And humanity thinks because they can force order on the worlds they find and the creatures they find to reframe it to fit human narrative of structure and order, regardless of the creatures that they're encountering, that they are the dominant species. But now they're meeting one that like wants to force humans into their order, which is to be eaten. I don't know. It's very interesting, and it's paralleled in a way that like I don't think the Cielcin. Hadrian wants us to think that the Cielcin are inherently evil, and it's impossible to negotiate with them. And I just think that it is impossible to negotiate with them from a point of pride, which is inherent to everybody here at the negotiation table. Like, you have to be able to be willing to be like, hey, we want to submit to you. How can we do that where you don't eat us? Instead, they're like, hey, we want you to submit to us. Is very much so like how it plays. And I'm like, guys, could we just like acknowledge that you're on the back foot and you need to like make some concessions? Even if it's like, hey, 20,000 people a year have to get eaten. That's still better based on what we were talking about earlier within your own morals, but like that's not what we're getting to, you know? Like,
the problem is that they don't see payment as anything other than like tribute and submission, right? Like there's no trade.
But it's like, I let's stop trying to trade. Let's tell them what tributes, like, hey, what could we tribute to you to where you stop raiding our planets? How many?
Yeah.
Because we can grow them in the fucking tubes with no brain and just give them to you.
Right.
We have the ability to do that. But humanity isn't willing to accept that there is a species out there that we can't dominate or be equals with.
Definitely true. I just also want to layer in this other layer, which is that they also aren't understanding, also because of the communication gap that is naturally existing here, right? Miscommunication.
Yeah, of course. We have the benefit of Hadrian at the end of his life telling us what they were missing. But
right. Yeah. So miscommunication being a critical problem throughout this whole process is that like they don't understand the idea of like giving anything back in agreement with like some sort of anything. Like,
yes,
paying tribute is submission, meaning that you follow us, meaning I can take advantage of you for whatever you're worth.
For sure.
So like that's the problem, is there's no stopping point in which something becomes
because
like
it's a zero sum game
right. And that's what he says, right? Like there's no zero sum game in the mind of the Cielcin. There's no end point.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, so you submit, so we do what we want. No, we don't submit. Okay, well then we're at war.
Yeah. And he takes particular offense to the word merchant, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure with the word merchant. And I do want to dive into that, but I also feel like the fact that some Cielcin are permitted to live amongst other Cielcin tells us that there is some sort of hierarchical understanding where you can be permitted to live. And we're not really like looking for that. We're looking for like a trade agreement, which is like inherently offensive to them. So it's just like, oh man, it's like kind of a frustrating read where no one's trying to understand the other's culture. And it's like, if the other person's not going to reach across the aisle, sometimes you have to figure out how to reach across the aisle too. And in my mind, like 100% manipulate them, right? Like, how can we tell them what they need to hear to get what we want out of this, even if it is against like our own pride or thought process? But no one's trying. They're like, hey, we're trying to make a deal here. We're trying to art of the deal. And and the Cielcin are like, submit. And nobody's willing to be like, okay, so we submit, but here's how. And the Cielcin aren't trying to be like, oh, we want you to submit, but here's how. Like, no one's reaching across the aisle at all. They're just like yelling at each other in different languages, even if it's the same words.
And that's what's interesting about the opening to Valka again, now that we're skipping forward to that chapter, but it's like they've been going through this and trying to do that and failing in some ways.
Yes. Yeah, right. They just can't comprehend each other.
Yeah. Right. They fail to meet on these sort of equal grounds. And includes these mistranslations like merchant, right? As Hadrian comes to that sort of like thought process, right? Like, again, to the zero-sum game. these offensive words that they consider very negative, like peace, like, peace being subjugation, merchant being like the equivalent of kind of the worst thing.
Yeah, which is interesting because
it reminds me of the, like, in biblical context again, like loan, like debtors, right?
Debtors being like
one
the
of
worst
the
thing you could
worst.
be.
Yeah, right.
Which outside of biblical context, I think kind of like also,
Yeah, right. Just kind of bad, but
yeah. Just like people who make their whole living off of like finding the most financially vulnerable people and then giving them money so that they can like rip it back at rates that weren't necessarily agreed upon. Student loans.
Clear.
I'm talking about student loans.
Right. Yeah. Especially.
You know how you can
for the
sign
education
up
of the future
for a few $100,000 at 17 years old legally, and then you're stuck in it.
Yeah, precisely. But it just reminds me of kind of the same idea. Like Cielcin react negatively to that word.
The Cielcin are. Yeah. No, I'm not going to keep going on the student loans thing. But
I understood where you're going. It's cool. We can cut that off. But Hadrian does step in the middle of this conversation as we continue down those negotiation paths variously, and we kind of see the results that we talked about. In classical English, to lend his opinion to Torvaro here, trade being beneath the Cielcin prince, they must pay some form of tribute instead. Like we'd mentioned, Smythe almost bluntly asks what they would need to survive. Oliacum speaks out of turn after a planet is offered, like we'll give you space on which to live, leading to Oliacum to be hit by Aranata physically, stepping in again to deny the offer. What world would keep us? Say Viatu is gone. Our earth is gone. We do not walk the surface like your kind, like beasts, and we will not take your leavings like a slave. You are not our masters to grant us favors.
I think it's wild that they exist in a world where to be planetary is to be like lesser than. Like like these aren't. At some point, their world left them, just like ours, right? So we went and settled other worlds and continued to live tyrannically. Would that be the word?
Yeah, tyrannic.
Yeah. But they're like, to live on a world is to be an animal. We are creatures of the stars, and I don't know. It's so interesting. I would love, maybe one of them is there. I would love to read a short story from a Cielcin viewpoint.
There are a couple. Yeah.
Hell yeah. I would love to know it. I would like to hear it.
I'll tell you, we get into a lot of this. I mean, this is our introduction to the Cielcin proper in a lot of ways. Like, we're finally beginning to understand what they are.
So much of this story tells me that it is like, we just cannot exist with the Cielcin. These cannot exist together. And that might be true, but like, it really seems like they're like, we can't exist while also maintaining our pride and our position as the best with the Cielcin. And I'm like, no, I think you could maybe exist with Cielcin. Maybe the Cielcin could exist with you, but neither of you were like willing to do it. It's not impossible,
Right. Yeah. But there is a bridge, maybe, but like you're not.
But no one's looking for it. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone's staring across the river at each other. No one's willing to step into it to begin to put up posts to build.
Yeah. There might even already be a bridge, but no one's looking left or right.
No. Yeah. We're looking forward, not left or right.
Yeah, never left or right. Never left, right, left, right, left, right, go.
But the interesting thing of this too is like the physical abuse, right? Like the swatting of like imagine this, considering the day and age that we live in, this might seem ridiculous in most other contexts, but imagine a president hitting one of their advisors.
Yeah, imagine Alistair Marlowe hitting one of his servants.
Right.
Would never happen.
Right. Well, true. Okay, I understand your thing. I was comparing and saying that, like, I could imagine this in the current context of the administration. But also, yes, Alistair Marlowe absolutely would have.
But it is one of those things where they're like...
And that is the way that the Cielcin react to the world. Like, it is a servant. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is where the, like... How do I put this? Like, the outrage of Hadrian, or the assumed outrage of those around Hadrian, because we're seeing this through Hadrian's eyes, towards the treatment of a translator being beat just for simply saying the words or whatever it is. Is that what's going on here? Am I reading that right?
This is Oliacum, which is the sort of the herald that had came up before, not the translator. But the translator does get backhanded once or twice.
Yes.
As well. Yeah.
But even with that, they're like, he's just hitting people. What an evil bitch. And I'm like, we've seen that from our own Palatines towards the problem is that they view the Cielcin as one hierarchy, as one species below humanity, whereas they view humanity as a level of tiers. And even if like Rain Smythe isn't necessarily Palatinian, is still part of an upper tier, they don't realize that like they treat the lowest of their own as bad or worse than the Cielcin do. And I think that's where like this like disconnect is coming from, is they're expecting a grouping of nobility like they have brought. Like nobody here for the humans is less than a soldier, which is still like better than a pleb, even if they are a plebeian. You know, like a soldier is an elevated status to a degree from what has been implied. So I think that they're like seeing these people treated in a manner that they would treat the little natural born street people back home. But that's, you know, like, and there's like this weird disconnect where they're all Cielcin to them, but they do that to plebs, but they don't think about plebs as the way that they think about them. And I don't know, it becomes hypocritical, but.
Oh yeah, definitely. It does kind of like circle around and stuff, which I find, which is part of the reason that I love the, like, there's this funny note that comes as this sort of, you are not our masters to grant us favors. And then Basander is the one of whom like has the knife cutting tension moment where he says, that's not a helpful answer, as Basander muttered, and privately I agreed with him. Like it's a funny bit within the section, but also it's indicative of exactly what you're saying. Like it is like you're missing the point of what he's saying, you know, by acknowledging it that way. You're missing the point of the context of like species, community, and like the way that the hierarchies exist within. We're not recognizing the hierarchies in the opposite of Cielcin at this point. We're not seeing that there is a Palatine class and there is less than that.
Yeah. I have. This is a weird conversation. I have sat in a restaurant in Italy at 14 years old and watched my mom and my grandpa on my dad's side, his wife, argue. And the grandpa, my dad's dad, left America like a month before I was born. And moved to Chile, where he married a rich Chilean woman.
Okay.
And I saw him like every now and then. Every couple of years, he'd show up with like some lavish treat, but that's like the extent of my relationship with him. One of those lavish treats was, hey, let's go to Italy. Hell yeah. I haven't seen you in 5 years, but let's do it. You know, my mom is a very conservative Christian American woman. Sure. Patriotic Christian American woman.
Mine as well. Catholic. We'll shift that subtly, but
Gloria is a very Catholic, anti-American Chilean revolutionary, but like in like the bad way. I don't know how to explain it.
Oh, fascinating. People can look into the Chilean revolution. It's very interesting, and the Argentinian as well.
Exactly.
Those influence each other.
Yeah. They are. But
diametrically opposed,
but also both completely unwilling to acknowledge that the other person has like a different viewpoint or worldview or upbringing or anything else than the other. And I would say that this would be just like my mom as the villain and Gloria as not the villain in a lot of ways if it wasn't for the fact that my mom is a poor person and Gloria is a hyper wealthy, like upper class Chilean.
So there's an interesting.
So there's like this interesting, like, well, America is here, Chile's here. There's some, but then also the wealthy to the poor, and there's just like this weird dichotomy where I'm like, neither of you are understanding that you're saying the same thing back and forth at each other, where the other person's the villain, and you'll never accept this. And I remember thinking that at 14 and being like, well, this sucks. They're just going to yell at each other all night.
Yeah, right.
Because it's like imperialism and the effects of American imperialism on South America is a major factor of this conversation that my mom is unwilling to accept or acknowledge.
Right.
Classism and wealth and like this stance that Gloria has over my mom in the sense of being like an educated, wealthy person, she'll never accept as like
right.
And so there's just like this weird thing where you just have these like two people who like are valuing things on different levels and can't consider each other's existences. That's what's going on right here, so.
Yeah. It's tough to that point. Like there's like a total misalignment in views and values, and it's exacerbated. It's even worse because they don't share a species, which is repeated as such.
Oh yeah, to an extreme level. Yeah,
it's repeated as such with this sort of like tigress mantra that's repeated throughout here. That we kind of get into, at the very end here. It's so interesting. Like where does nature and nurture lie on the spectrum of what we're looking at here? At what point does one thing collapse to give way to the other?
Yeah, I love this like tigress thing too. We're very much so talking about like the Cielcin being these like apex predators, and is it wrong that the tigress does not like it doesn't make trade with the prey,
and for them it's a matter of nature or instinct, right? Like it's not even nature or nurture. It's like this is
Hadrian has a weird thing when he says like inherently people will say the tiger is an evil because it's its nature, but I think that like the nature makes the tiger evil because it can't be reasoned with.
And that's an interesting argument, but it's
such
wrong.
An interesting perspective that I disagree with, but like because at the end of the day, like Hadrian isn't much different or better and is also not being reasoned with. And like there's this. Yeah.
He's missing acknowledging that there is a whole species of the way that they are raised, right? Like there's a parent structure. Obviously, there are children. Like there is something else.
Kind of like lions and tigers and wolves,
Lions, leopards. Yeah.
Oh, lions, leopards, and wolves. Yeah. It's kind of what's going on here.
Well, I think that's the intent, is to like compare the tigress to the lion as it is to the Inferno quote. Like I think that's the idea here that we're beginning to muscle into a little bit.
Now, is there an intention here that of the use of tigress and not lioness?
Good call. Good question.
Where the Cielcin aren't one of the lions, leopards, or wolves. Maybe humanity isn't either. Maybe the lions, the leopards, and the wolves are more like the Americanii, the quiet, and the deep. And we're all just little pawns in their game.
Yeah, who knows?
Like humanity, Cielcin, Umad, we're all just little creatures running around while the true like masters of the universe play their little games. I'm so fucking, and this is a mild spoiler for a different series. So if you haven't read the first law, don't pay that close of attention. I'm so traumatized by the idea that everything that happens across country to country is just like a petty disagreement
Wizard war.
Wizard brothers. Yeah. So like, I'm looking for it in every novel now. I'm like, all right, who's the two wizards who just need to like have a dinner and hash this out?
That's fun.
Yeah.
I do want to mention there's a really strong quote at the very end of this section, which I think is just an incredibly compelling set of like 14 pages. Like this is easily the most interesting part of this whole section. There are a couple of other bits that are great, and obviously we talked at length, but like this is so interesting from the communication, the language, everything else that we begin to get laid out here. Tanaran starts this almost religious prayer, leading the Cielcin in chanting Yayato in response. We seek for ourselves a new world. We have been watched through our infancy when the great carved cities in the bowels of the world. When the air was poisoned, they showed us the sky. When the earth was poisoned, they showed us new ones. But the new world were not as the old, and we could not live upon them. The light of the stars was a poison greater than any we had made at home. Do you understand? As we both understand that this about the quiet, the watchers, as they're mentioned, as well as Hadrian's realization about technology and the differences therein. I mean, what a fucking like little history lesson or culture lesson about the Cielcin in such a tight package. As they shout Yayato as this like collective like chant.
It's also interesting, like when the earth was poisoned, they showed us new ones.
Mm-hmm.
The new world were not as the old. We could not live upon them. There's an interesting aspect, like back to Cielcin, where like at its surface level, it's not that different than like the Chantry religion in a lot of ways. Like I want to know, did the Cielcin poison their own earth? how is the earth poisoned? We don't know. How much of this is just environmentalism? But like,
right.
Most of it, I assume, but like, it's very interesting to see kind of like how closely the Cielcin religion mirrors the Chantry in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I love the fervor of it. You know what I mean? Like it's different even than Chantry because of that fervor that everyone is chanting. And I've never seen we haven't seen something like that so far, like the Empire,
Well, because the Empire is very based on like philosophy and like academia, whereas this is very based on like belief.
But they've got a heart pose, right? They've got a circle sign that they make.
Didn't you have to like stand up and move your tassel whenever you graduated?
Right.
Like it doesn't matter how academic you are. Everyone has you still had to wear a robe like you were in a fucking cult. Everybody has tradition and standards and strange symbols and things, and like sororities and fraternities exist, and they speak Latin for no reason, and like I don't know, like it all exists within academia, but the importance isn't the symbolism or the collectivism. It's all like part of like the individual pursuit of knowledge within the parameters allowed from the academia, especially whenever you bring in like a cultist religion such as the Chantry as an oversight to it. Catholic school. So yeah, there's still like that, whereas this is something that is like very deeply inherently based within the religion, but the academia comes second, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't any. We don't really know based on Cielcin culture, but it's interesting that like deep down the like not the logos, not the pathos, but kind of the ethos sticks the same between the two. I think it would be the ethos that sticks the same between the two.
Pathos because the logic, the emotional approach. Ethos, I think is the right. I think you're striking.
It's not the logic. Level. Like the logic is different.
No, logic's definitely wrong. Pathos is you relating to the audience. Ethos would be
it's like the emotion is there of like this connection that you have to pursue because it's true, it's right. This is what happened.
So that'd actually be pathos then.
Okay, I was between ethos and pathos.
Because ethos is like ethics, morals, those kind of things. Pathos is relating to someone else. It's the relational.
It might be that like the ethics and the morals line up the same.
It can be a combination of both, but like pathos is like the weird one. It's the like hard one to describe.
Pathos-y combo, but it's specifically like the way how they view their devotion to this thing, the need to serve, the truth that they are unwilling to look at too closely between the Chantry and this religion and the.
To me, that's pathos. Just
okay,
I would call that pathos.
Then the pathos of it, but it just doesn't feel like an appeal, which I feel like pathos has like an appeal aspect. But
you're appealing to the audience, you're appealing to the other side, but at the very least, they can each be running those same lines, and they don't understand that they are
ethos
approaching the same thing.
Without logos, but with pathos.
Sure, I understand where you're going for.
It's the ethos that exists from the pathos without the logos to question it.
Yeah,
they both have that inherently at odds, but in such a similar way. Now we're in like a weird. I feel like I'm back at community college debating. Like,
dude, I used to get in so many arguments with my sister and my brother. I'm the oldest of three. That my parents were divorced. Every other week we were back and forth. After we had gotten into a couple of like pretty bad arguments at the dinner table, he gave us each a packet, meaning like 9 pages in total, on ethos, pathos, and logos, and said, we are never having another conversation at this dinner table unless you can reference the way that you're trying to make an argument until you become civil. And so we all learned ethos, pathos, logos ideas. It's sick. Like I learned so much from that. I gained so much understanding from where people are coming from.
Love that he's like, hey, it's not that we're not going to argue at this table. It's that if we're going to argue at this table, we need to understand how we're doing it. Exactly.
Right. Like think through what you're saying before you're making a nonsensical point. And that like totally changed the way that I thought. Like it gave me a framework to think within.
That's awesome because it's also like it gave you specifically like an end to make your arguments. Like, that wasn't a denial of the ability to challenge your dad. That was him giving you the groundwork you needed to properly do so.
Yeah.
That's fucking
well,
rad,
it was mostly
actually.
my sister and I.
Oh, yeah.
But,
yeah. Or each other, challenge each other. Yeah. At the end of the day, like, that's like hey, it's not that we're not going to disagree and have these conversations. Here's the groundwork to do so properly in an effective way. That's actually really fucking cool.
It was very cool, but also it gives the same framework of like, we hope that we could communicate in this way between these two species, but also they're like missing each other narrowly, and like
and
only
this was
old
between you and your
Hadrian
sister
can
was
point
most of
it
the
out.
arguments.
Yeah, right.
Well,
yeah,
men and women, we're just different species. We don't understand each other.
Yeah, right. We speak with violence. The implication of violence.
And girls, they just scratch each other. They pull each other's hair. This is a reference to last week. This isn't either of our feelings.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Although she did bite me a lot, so that's a whole separate thing. When fighting, like it was teeth. But
I ripped my brother's mole off of his neck trying to choke him to death once.
A mole? Like,
yeah, they found out later that the mole was cancerous, so I saved his life.
Well. With that, I think we can move into Valka again.
You ever try and kill your brother and you accidentally save him?
Yeah, you save him in the long run?
Yeah.
This was last Tuesday.
They still had to like do surgery to make sure they got all of it. But like the fact that my mom brought in the mole, she's like, oh, what the fuck happened? They checked it out and they're like, this mole's got cancer.
So the negotiations seem to be going poorly, as we've talked about over the course of this. As we catch up with Hadrian and Valka, him catching Valka up on sort of the situation, but not before we get a little reflection from older Hadrian on creatures killing and evil associated with the principles versus nature, like we'd been talking about with the tigress before. I love this sort of like open reflection. We talked about it a little bit, but this is sort of where we like really get into it from old Hadrian's perspective.
Yeah.
Nature versus principles, which is different than nature versus nurture. And also, it's not as though they don't have principles. This is my issue and our issue, I think, collectively. Those principles exist on a different layer of understanding than what you're interpreting your own layer of understanding to be.
What's interesting to me is I don't think any argument that Hadrian is making currently about the Cielcin exists that differently than any argument that some British explorer made about some like
very Darwinian
other culture, like how many times did someone from like England show up in like India and be like, we can't talk to these people, their gods have too many arms,
True, I understand.
Like it to me, it does feel
Hernan Cortez. Yeah,
it feels like this thing where it's like you're like, these are insurmountable. These like this literally can't happen. They want to eat us, and it's like maybe but they were probably eating things before they found you. So like, can we figure that out?
Yeah,
but like no one's asking that question. What did you eat before us? Like nobody's like coming into this trying to figure out from like a more base level. Everyone's coming in specifically from their like culture and hierarchical perspective, where they're, regardless of if the Empire or if Hadrian's like, hey, we want to come out of this with peace, they are all trying to come out with this with the other agreeing to their way of life,
right? Without
really trying to acknowledge or figure out the other's way of life. And this whole section with like the tigress and everything else is like, we can't talk to them because how could like a lamb talk to a tiger? I wasn't a lamb, but like that's kind of like the thing that comes across on it, and it's like, they could both speak English, maybe. Zootopia exists, so.
Yeah, no, I love that comparison and that thought experiment because it does point us in a bunch of different directions of like.
Also, I said if they could both speak English, I put myself back in the imperialism. I'm sorry, maybe we both speak Cielcin.
Well, that's why I brought up Hernan Cortez, right? Like, because I was like, we'll spin in the Spanish direction with Mexico. Because it's not
didn't go great for them either.
No, awfully, terribly. One would argue the worst. Yeah, maybe. I mean, up until the blankets, pretty bad. Jackson was pretty bad, but
I think if you were to
Cortez is sort of the original version of that.
The imperial colonialism competition for who was the worst to the natives is a wild road we could go down, and I don't know if there's a clear and cut answer,
but also not one that we should maybe interrogate right now without thinking about it a little bit more.
I would just say that certainly the Spanish have like they're
got a flag in that, sure.
They're definitely making it to the playoffs.
Right, for sure. But yeah, so it makes an interesting point of like, what were they doing before, and like how did they survive? Were they shrinking in population for some reason? Were they growing? Are they now? Because we know based on the last chapter that they more than doubled in size. They're up to 28 million, whatever, within this single clan. You know, that's a big deal over the course of the last 1,600 Cielcin years, 800 R years, which is another like bonus factor.
Yeah, that was interesting. Where they say the years and they're like, that can't be right.
They're like, it's their years. Okay, we understand. Like now we've got the math for that. But I think that it's easy to skip because within the Cielcin perspective, it says 1,600, which then we need to do the math and say 800 because that also lines up with the time frame from when the Cielcin and humans encountered each other. So yada yada. Yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating. We've talked a lot about this. I think we can move into like the little romancy bit, unless you've had anything else to say about.
Nothing else to say about this book, only that because I grew up playing Halo, it's very interesting to read. Or to be involved in two stories where it does feel like the longer spacefaring, possibly more advanced, stranger, more alien culture is the more religious. It'd be like very interesting to read that from the opposite perspective, which I guess is kind of Warhammer, ish.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Warhammer is like the most religious, depending on the race that they're encountering. Like the Eldar are sans religion in a lot of ways. Necrons are obviously like entirely religious. Orcs are all anyway. I could get into this. We don't.
I know that. I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have brought up Warhammer. Yeah, but it'd be interesting to be like, hey, the aliens are spacefaring because they don't have a bunch of religion. It would be cool to see a story where the aliens are Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they're doing well, and then we're just like the religious problem. Because it's always the opposite. I feel like whenever I see it or read it, but
yeah, good point.
And this one isn't the opposite. This is we're both the religious problem. This is just holy war coming to a.
It's more like a holy war. It's more like two different religions conflicting. Like it's more like the Crusades in all.
Yeah,
honesty,
I was going to say it's very Crusades based. It feels very like okay. And at the end of the day, there's almost an implication that both of these religions kind of span from some adjacent to the Quiet that may have existed before either. So in a lot of ways, it is like the Crusades, where they stem from the same fucking religion originally, but then they have two different offshoots and they're really mad at each other, so they're going to murder each other for land.
We're still fighting that today.
Yeah.
Inadvertently.
What?
That said, Valka does point out something that like no one else had up until this point, that the only shared details between the two cultures and species are actions and objects. Everything else has been missing. And so as a part of this communication struggle and style, she thinks it crazy that Hadrian hasn't recognized this at this point. Actions and objects are what overlap.
This is what I've been saying. Like, let's break out of, hey, we're going to make this deal. Hey, we're merchants. No, we're subjective. No, actions and objects. How can our actions and your objects get each other to not kill each other?
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, Arenata's like, well, if you give me something, that's mine. Thank you. I'm going to eat you. And you're like, if I give you something, that was mine. And now you let me do what I want. And nobody's being like, how can we get past these two conversations to just be like, what actions can we give you?
At what point are you full?
Are yours, so that because we submit. How can we submit and not be eaten? What can we feed you as your submissions, submitters, your subjugates?
Dearly beloved.
How can we subjugate ourselves in a way that makes you eat other things? And then at the same time, you can, once you have that, then you can manipulate the situation to be like, all right, so this is what they need to not do that. What do they have that we could get? And how can we make them give it? How can we convince them that them giving us this is up subjecting to them? Because it's, at the end of the day, it's language. It's, but everyone's so caught up on like, well, I won't nail to the Cielcin. I'm like, you can kneel to the Cielcin and then like have them serve you if you play it right, which I feel like is what Valka's getting at. She's like, it is objects and actions. That's all we have to worry about. Let's get out of this fucking
cycle. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But ever Valka, the only person in this book that I think 90% of the time makes sense. But
most consistent at the very least. Sandra is also very consistent, but
yeah. Honestly, Sandra and Valko, if you got them out of all the bullshit could probably solve this in like a week. But if Bassander had been like, hey, I'm taking Valka, we're going to go make peace with the Pale, and the Empire was like, all right, you're cut off, you can never come back, then they might have done
probably
it.
Work. Yeah. That said, Valka does take this moment to cut the cameras, leaving them alone to discuss the fact that Hadrian believes that it is likely that they're going to have to fail these negotiations as a part of this whole thing, unable to recognize the disparities between the two cultures. He asks Valka if he's a good man as he's contemplating his actions over the course of this, including the 20,003 lives maybe, that he feels accountable for over the course of this. And she really stumbles through saying yes. And I mean that in the best kind of way.
Well, it's like a weird pullback reference to, right? To like her conversation about what she did.
Yeah.
I feel like is kind of mentioned in there, maybe.
Yeah. They talk about like her being a soldier as an element, like, and she'd stepped away from that in so many regards. But there's a bunch of helpful qualifiers as to when he has been good to her and kind as well, and kind of explaining like the way in which he has stepped out of it. And we have seen that over the course of the series. This is not an invented fiction in some way. But she's even still afraid that the Empire might still kill Hadrian and doesn't want to see that happen.
Yeah, I've had coworkers that like maybe it was like a mildly flirty relationship, but it wasn't really that. And then we've just been stuck doing the night shift forever. Eventually, you're gonna like each other. So they got locked in a room for a few months, and Valka maybe is. I'm not willing to admit I was wrong that Valka wasn't into Hadrian. Is what's going on.
Okay.
She is now. Yeah. But only because of the 4 months locked in a room.
I do think it took time. I think it took time and effort. Like, I think that what's interesting about this is this speaks to me like a communication relationship style. Like, this is more of a demisexual relationship where it's like, hey, I need to know that you care about me before like I'm into this. I have sexual needs, which
I thought demisexuals were only attracted to demigods, but that's
true. Which is why she obviously loves him. Yeah, no,
probably am also demisexual, but it's fine.
Right. Well, yeah, you gotta have that like proximity in order to like make it make sense in a lot of ways. So yeah.
Hey, Cross.
What?
Do you consider yourself demisexual? You seem like you might be. Hard to say.
I think so. I think
you're demisexual, but also horny.
I don't. Man, I don't want to get into too much detail in my own like personal like realm of things, but I do think that I'm more. Look,
Hadrian's about to be really vulnerable with us. Yeah. We could be a little vulnerable with Hadrian.
Yeah, I think so. I think that I nod in that direction more. I need a more intimate connection. Yeah. Most of the people, as a reflection, most of the people that I've dated over the course of the last 5 years of my life have been close friends beforehand in some capacity. And I don't mean that in like an invasion of like a friend privacy, but we knew each other for a while before we chose to like go in a different direction. So
cool. I like buzz cut blonde baddies. No comments. Let's move on. That's my wife, by the way, everybody. My wife has a buzz cut. Right. She's dyed blonde.
And she's excellent. Leslie's great.
She's excellent. Yeah.
We love Leslie. We round out the week. Valka steps forward in sort of a dramatic moment and presses into Hadrian, violating this like space that they've talked about holding for so long. Moving into that as she kisses him, as she says that she won't let him die, as he's talking about like his potential death.
There's a line earlier in this chapter, and I wish I could remember exactly what it was.
Give me context. I'll find out.
I wish I could remember the wording, but it feels like there's an implication that this relationship sparking is like something that future Hadrian harms him in some way. Like something about this maybe leads to Valka's death or something. But I don't I don't know what it was, but there was something like she did something that would harm me more than anything I ever knew or something. And then she kisses him.
Yeah. Our lives can change at any moment, but they change so drastically on only a few times. This is not that line, but like that's emblematic of what you're looking for here. Yeah.
So yeah, there's something that I feel like is like an impending doom looming over this relationship as well.
Well, there has been since they were introduced. Like there is this sort of fatality that Hadrian has to it.
Fatality. Yeah. But it is very nice just to Valka kisses Hadrian, you know?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like this entire time, Hadrian's been pining for Valka. I don't think he's that subtle. I think she knows.
Mm-hmm.
And then she chooses to kiss him. She pushes him on the couch, you know? That's
right.
Look, kisses are kisses. Kisses where you get pushed onto the couch, those are different kisses.
Yeah. Very true.
Yeah.
I love the line that this ends with. Breathless, I believed her. Which is... Christopher Rocchio does not write, and I would never impose the implication that he writes romance in any way, shape, and form. But every once in a while, he stumbles into something really well done.
He does some stuff in this series, especially in this book specifically, that I think is more aggressively willing to dive into what is good and what works about a lot of romance.
Yeah.
In a way that I feel like so many sci-fi and fantasy authors are afraid to touch.
Sure. Explain more. Give me more.
The scene with Janan earlier in this book.
Yeah. Right. Very flirty, very fun.
Maybe we talked about the dick joke a lot, but like there it's an actual very intimate, very
that dick joke was with the Psalm that was Karn, but
you're right. Yes. But back with Janan, there's a very intimate, very visceral kind of, it borders on explicit in a way where look, and if I break down like the fantasy and sci-fi authors I've read, so many of them don't do this at all. So maybe there is better scenes, but I feel like I have read much more explicit sex scenes that are upsetting or male focused or very clinical. Whereas this is very written from like the romantic, the kind of the feeling, the passion, the inherent thing that I get more out of whenever I read something that maybe as like a world building or as a character focused person, I'm not as into. Something like Fourth Wing, where I'm like, hey, is this written poorly? Maybe for what I'm looking for whenever I'm reading Joe Abercrombie, but is it written better than any of these fantasy authors write the feeling of a relationship and need and longing? Yeah. Rocchio's actually putting that there. Like Abercrombie does write sex scenes, but they're not like hot. You know? But
that's the intent. Like,
yes, of course, it's very intentional. But like, I feel like there's also this thing where like somehow writing a sex scene that actually feels like passion and sex and is like somewhat titillating, even not in like a pornographic way, but like, you know, like something that like puts you there with the character the same way. I feel like somebody who is willing to put you in the moment and make you feel what is being felt in an action scene or a sex scene equally is a rare find.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Rocchio kind of does that. I think he gives you the visceral feeling of fear and passion and pain and anger whenever Hadrian is swinging his sword, as much as he does give you the feeling of passion and love and fear and anger, as much as when he's swinging his sword. You know, like it's nice to have someone who doesn't necessarily shy away from one thing for the other, because I do feel like
so many do. Yeah,
it really does come down to this inherent, and I'm not saying that this is not indicative of the authors at all. This is very much so the audience. There is an inherent misogyny to sci-fi and fantasy. It is like video games and many other things where there is a contingency of the fans that is like not the majority, but a large enough minority that has this thing where it's like, these are for boys. And there's this rejection of romance. There's this rejection of sexuality. There's this rejection of these things if it's not specifically done in like a very male-centric way. That it's really nice to see like a well done, passionate, more romantic, more romance writing way of doing this. Right. It was a very big thing for me whenever. So I've mentioned it on the show before. I would love to write a novel one day. I'm working on it. I'm working on a few. I don't know which one I'll actually do. Whenever I started working on my novel that I'm currently working on, I actually went and met with a friend of mine who has released a few romantasy novels. And we went to the bar and we hung out and I was like, hey, I feel like I have read a lot of a specific type of fantasy, and I know that I can accomplish a battle scene, and I know that I can accomplish a plot twist. I don't know that I can actually accomplish like romance or sex in a way that doesn't feel narrow and view what are some of your favorite ones that, and I like told her what I was trying to write that kind of match this. What can I read? How do you write it? Like, because I would hate to write a story that was stunted in one very specific direction if I'm trying to encompass all of human existence, you know? And like, how can I encompass all of human existence and leave out sex and romance and longing? And I love that Rockio doesn't. Like, it's weird to say, but as like a nerdy man writing a sci-fi series, it's really fucking brave to just like be a little romancy sometimes.
Yeah, you look over your shoulder, and I just like, I can't help it. Like, both of our sets of books, right? We look over, and many of them are similar. The thing that stands out to me is so many lack proper male-female relationships in so many ways. And I mean this
Jennifer
from like,
K. This is who I met with.
Oh, cool. Excellent.
But yeah.
Love that.
Your thought. Yeah.
So many like lack this in a way that I feel like it feels substantive. Brandon Sanderson does his best. And he doesn't, but he doesn't do it well in the same way that Rockio does. I think Rockio does romance better than Sanderson.
I think so.
In a lot of ways. There are a couple of exceptions.
I think Sanderson, from the specific view that he's writing, does write romance decently. But he is unwilling to do anything explicit beyond like the immediate feeling.
He's unwilling to break that sort of barrier, which is necessary.
I can completely understand like this desire to avoid sex as part of romance because we live in a society that's overly sexualized a lot of the time, sure. But like sex is an important part of romance, and it's nice to be able to read it in a way that feels honest to the romance itself. Not that even we have a sex scene here. I'm just saying Rockio in general. Like whenever he does get into these romantic scenes, I am actually like pretty impressed.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does really well with this subtly. Like,
if I was reading this in a romance novel, it's milk toast, boring, whatever.
It's disappointing.
But it's just the fact that he's willing to try. You know?
Correct.
Which
and especially to put it into a deep sci-fi, you know?
Like, look, in Red Rising, we have a sex scene, technically, in the first couple chapters. But it's not.
It's not. Yeah.
It's not. You know?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
And it leads to a trauma scene, which guys love writing those, you know?
Right. A little fridging, a light fridging.
Yeah, a light fridging. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Dudes love writing fridging, but it's
no
good.
One gets fridged in Sun Eater so far.
Yeah, I guess Kat's not really a fridging. Yeah, you know.
No, Kat gets a full character arc. She we get her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, she doesn't inspire his whole journey. Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Yeah,
just a
she's
little.
A narrative. You know. No. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, core point
Gibson
being,
gets
I agree with you
for sure.
Gibson gets fridged way more than Kat does. That said, I do totally agree with you. I think that Rockio does an excellent job writing romantic notions into the novel without it ever bridging into super sexual. I mean, this book does get sexual 2 or 3 times.
But it's willing to.
Great.
That's what I respect. And it doesn't even.
Right.
It's like it's a solid PG-13 a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I feel like so many books are like, we're like hard R. You could never film this with how violent they are, how fucked up they are. And then they won't even like give you a little bit of a pee-pee touch in a good way, you know? So like,
right.
Here's my question. Why are so many male fantasy and sci-fi authors willing to write rape, but not willing to write love?
I mean, full on applause. I don't know how else to say that. Like, I totally agree with you because that is so core and fundamental to life, period.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
Don't write sex if it's upsetting, and that's it. Like, be vulnerable. Write sex when it's not upsetting.
Yes. And that's so critical and so important to like character growth and like people meeting each other and being with each other, which is the only qualm that I have with this novel so far, as we're in it, is that we see the relationship with Jinan being very physical, but we do see that as like an element of love in its own way. And like Hadrian understanding that is some type of thing, but it's also not the thing that he wants in the long run. And then we also get the subsequent, which like he is sexually attracted to in the middle of Karn's sort of psalm. And then we come out to this point in which he is breathless, taken away by the woman that he's been attracted to for so long. And so that's like a dynamic of relationship and love and like a person experiencing the full spectrum in my mind of the way that relationships could exist
Yeah.
One that is more physical, one that is strictly sexual, and then one that is more than all of that and more together.
100%. Yeah. And I don't want to like pretend like this is not a sex scene chapter, but it is just so well done. And the fact that we actually get like somewhere in there, if you just edit together the right scenes, we do have like a full slow burn romance.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm really impressed by it from Rocchio pulling it off in the middle of this weird fucked up philosophy book.
There's a lot of other shit going on.
Yeah. The fact that he can teach me Greek mythology, light year travel, and then also have like a little smooching.
Yeah.
It's nice. And what's weird is I feel like so many mediums like TV will typically be very good about balancing these things. Movies will typically be very good about balancing these things. Books often struggle to balance these things, especially the types of books that I read. So it's really nice to see him balancing these things. And
dipping his toes in.
I will stop talking on the broad. We can get into the book, but yeah. So.
No, that is the end of the section, for the record. There's only like a full page on this ish. But I think it's important to like recognize that this is incredible in the way that it's depicted. And I don't think Rocchio gets enough credit for that personally.
Hey, Rocchio, I got certain questions about how you feel about trans people, but I really like how you... I'm kidding. I know that was from Hadrian's view.
Yeah, right.
No, I really... Rocchio deserves a lot of credit for like how he's able to actually do this, because like I think it's a vulnerability thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Inherently, that some people just aren't willing to cross into, and I wish I saw it more. And it's nice to see like decently done romantic romance. You know?
I think it also comes at a time in his life personally where it's like you're at that point where you understand what like real love looks like, and so he put it to pen to page.
I haven't read a lot of King, right? Yeah. But King is willing to write a sex scene, but is he willing to write a romance?
Yeah, I mean, he wrote a couple, but we don't need to talk about that.
Of course,
right now.
but a good one.
Fuck off. It's fine.
Like Sanderson's willing to write a romance, but he's not willing to write a sex scene.
Right.
You know, and we constantly get that where it's like, how many people are willing to just like let a relationship feel real and lived in and sexual and loving and everything else in a way that isn't like super male gazy,
cliche,
I guess.
Male gazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this
not that there's no male gaze here, but like
there's not no really. Male gaze in this scene,
really, there's no like
he's not staring at breasts.
He's not talking about titties. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like this is just a scene where breathlessly he believes her. You know?
Yeah,
because she kissed him. Yeah,
yeah. Again, like such a subtle paragraph, but. She did not answer, but kissed me again. The strength went out of my hands, and she pulled me to her. I forgot time for a moment, forgot the many futures I had seen, the bright ones and the dark ones and the ones in between. I'd forgotten the past, forgot my childhood on Delos, my suffering on Amesh, Caliga and Vorgosos, Pharos and Rustum, Gilliam, Uvenari, Junon and Switch, all fell and faded in that feminine dark, capital D. I forgot to breathe, and she pulled away, pressed her forehead to mine. Listen, she said, you are not going to die. I'm not going to let you. Breathless, I believed her. Perfect.
This is such a scene that would exist opposite. Yeah. Usually. Like the guy kisses her and he's like, I won't let that happen to you. And so that I feel like that's part of what's so nice. It's also like with Hadrian saying the strength left me. A lot of times in a scene like this, in this type of genre, it'd be like, she kissed me and I felt invigorated, you know, but like in this, it's like she kissed me and I felt I
let go.
The strength left me. I let go. I forgot to breathe. All of these things left me. And then she told me she was going to take care of me. It's very, I don't know, different than what you'll get out of a classic fantasy or sci-fi hero.
Yeah. It's so good. It's so good. I love their romance. I love their relationship personally. Yeah. It's a slow burn. It's lovely. It's great. There's so much more to talk about. Do you have anything else that you want to talk about for the week? Anything else that's popping to mind?
I think
Can you imagine if we had 4 more chapters?
No.
Sorry,
I was like, hey, I got to be out of here by 5. You're like, that won't be a problem. It's 4. We 4 more chapters. Let's go.
We did 4 hours on this on accident.
Yeah, on accident. And we always do, don't we?
Yeah. We do fill time if we know that we have time, but also there's a lot to explore here.
There's a lot to talk about in these books, and I like them.
It's good.
Rocchio... I actually do have some mild stuff to talk to you about, but I just don't think it's on the podcast.
Oh, sure. Sure.
I mean, it's a book event I want to go to, or multiple, you know.
Oh yeah. Like we talked about.
You can talk about it on the podcast. It just doesn't matter to these
that
people.
Said, next week, we're going to be reading The Limits of Reason Through the Narrow Way, which is like our next 7-chapter chunk. And then we're going to get into the end of the fucking book, baby. We're almost there. I think in total, including that one, 3 more episodes, and we're done with this bad boy.
I have a feeling this next session is gonna be the one. Like a lot of these, I've been like, all right, like it's hard to find time to read it. I'm gonna read it. I have a feeling this next section, I'm gonna end and be fucking mad at you. I can't keep reading.
Well, that's the way that I originally cut it, was for you to be mad at me at the end of this next section.
I have a feeling. Yeah. Okay. So yeah,
that was the idea. So I think that this will be more infuriating in its own way. We're ending on like a happy note here. That's not a cliffhanger, but it's like what happens next with Hadrian and like their life. So, yeah, it's a positive.
I'm excited. All right.
That said, thank you guys, of course, for listening to this week's podcast. You can find us on social media at Words and Whiskey Pod on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Threads. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, feel free to shoot us an email at wordsandwhiskeyshow@gmail.com. We've had many people reach out in the last couple of months. It's been great. We love you all dearly. We've got some interesting books coming up that we're really excited to talk about, including Musashi that someone sponsored. Very excited. I've started, which is excellent. And then Jeremy Cazal came out with a little book and sent it to us. I'm very excited. So
we also have, I don't know, are we saying maybe not Angie? Is that
Angie Kills a King? I mean, Evan Lycum will be on the show very shortly, yes. Talking about Angie Kills a King as well, and its sequel. We're not going to talk fully about the sequel, but we'll chat a little bit about that.
I'm only reading the one, so, you know.
Well, right. The other book isn't out until, I think, June, so, you know, it'll be a chat therein. But,
yeah. Oh,
very excited.
They didn't send you the book early? They sent me book early.
No, but also there's also Rob Hart who will be on the show and coming back shortly to talk about the 3rd book in the Assassins series.
Very excited. 3 assassins and a baby, 2 assassins and a baby. I don't remember how many assassins, but there's definitely a baby.
3 hitmen and a baby, but you're so close. Yeah.
Okay. Very excited for it. Love the first 2. Rob Hart's super cool. Also, just such a sick dude. Bunch of cool stuff coming up. Lots of books.
There's a lot. It'll be very fun.
Do you ever stop and realize that your friend was like, hey, man, you want to read books sometimes? And I was like, yeah, sure, I could be into podcasts. And your friend was like, that's not what I meant, but yeah, you're into podcasts now. And you're like, I'm into what? And then I was like, okay, that's okay. I'll read a book. And then your friend's like, what if you read 5 books at once?
At once? It is a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Also, like our present backlog has been the hardest it's ever been in that way. But there's a lot to do, and we're very excited.
I got this. I can do it. Put me in, coach.
You're wearing the book club hat. You got this.
I'm wearing the book club hat, the New York Library book club hat.
Hell yeah.
Oh man. Beyond that, if you'd like to support what we do here, check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/wordsandwhiskey. I'm not even going to do the thing that I normally do. I'm not even going to mention the word raring to go. That we're not even going to talk about. I cut
it, man.
No, if you would like to support what we do, please check us out on Patreon. I already said the thing, but it is patreon.com/WORDSANDWHISKEY, in case you don't know how to spell. Go check that out, and that's not demeaning. I can't spell shit ever. If you're like me, type in what I just said in the search bar. Go there and check it out. We love having you, and if you're there, you can see stuff that we talk about that doesn't make it on air, which I think is really fun because I think we watch cool shows sometimes, and we talk about other things like music, and also. Sometimes people can tell us what books to read. So if you got a book you really want us to read, go there. Make us read it. So
we're very excited to talk about more things in the future. But with that, dear listener, there are endings. And this is one. Forward and down, never left nor right.
Left, right, left, right, left, right, go.
3.
Cool.
Oh, did you want to say cool, rad, dope?
Yeah, why not? Cool.
Rad.
Dope.